and departments in the town. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Neese and
All right, Mayor.
start.
Thank you, members of council, mayor, residents, and staff for participation in today's first budget workshop. As typical at this annual event, you will hear from town staff. In their respective presentations, staff will touch upon their professional experiences, roles and responsibilities within the organization, accomplishments this past year, and a look towards the next year. At the next budget workshop, we'll put numbers to this respective narrative. So we'll have the forecasted revenue and the anticipated expenses. At a high level, these are the areas of focus for today's workshop. The workshops are designed to be more conversational between staff and the council. Members of the public can fill out a speaker form, and at the end, the mayor will call upon the speaker. This allows for members of the public in the audience to listen to the full discussion and then respond at the conclusion of the discussion. The entire budget process evolves actually over a 6-month period of time in 3 phases: evaluation, presentation, and approval, with the target being the beginning of the fiscal year on July 1st. During the evaluation phase, which takes place the months of January through March, staff reviews the strategic plan initiatives, their workloads and trends, and begins to develop and receive forecasted revenue and anticipated operational increases. Then in April, we hold the series of workshops. So today's the first one. There'll be 2 more after today. And then finally in May and June, we conduct the approval process. So we have a couple more additional public meetings to consider the approval of our budget. And that leads us up to the July 1st new fiscal year date. As shown in the previous slide, a strategic plan serves as a foundation for the municipal budget. The recent update and approval of the town council's strategic plan was a collaborative forward-thinking process designed to position the town for long-term success. This approach is aimed at addressing both current and emerging challenges, managing resources effectively, and maintaining a focus on the most critical aspects of town operations, including infrastructure, public safety, and community character. There are 5 pillars within the town's updated strategic plan, as illustrated on the left side of this slide. I will not steal the thunder away from staff, but under each one of these pillars are deliverables which staff will touch upon today. Carefree has adopted a financially conservative management approach focused on maintaining fiscal responsibility while delivering essential core municipal services. The town emphasizes a lean operation, prioritizing public safety contracts, community development, public works, and our municipal court. With only 16 full-time employees, Carefree operates one of the smallest municipal staffs within the state of Arizona. Each employee therefore takes on expanded roles to ensure compliance with federal, state, and local regulations. Indeed, the results of this conservative management practice speak for themselves, with millions of dollars invested in fire resources, street improvements, pedestrian facilities, roadway safety improvements, town facilities, gardens, and drainage improvements, and still more investment to come to our aging infrastructure. All while these investments are incrementally occurring, the town has built capital reserves, our savings account, to all-time highs. That's our record. We're investing in the community, and we're building our savings account. Pretty good accomplishments. Additionally, from a fiscal perspective, we have our eye on the future. The results speak for themselves. We are looking at diversifying, anticipating, and planning for the volatility in our future revenue streams by diversifying our tax base to address economic cycles, legislative impacts, and changes in consumer behavior. Town staff has worked hard to position this community to protect its unique qualities, invest in the aging infrastructure, and add to a high-quality life enjoyed by the residents. When looking at this record, these are the elements our residents care about and what we constantly been focused upon delivering. I am proud to say that the fiscal and physical state of this community has never been better than it is today, and this is a direct result of the many dedicated staff members you'll be hearing from. Today, you'll hear from work being performed in 4 town divisions: or departments, administrative services, community development, public works, and the municipal court. The core municipal services have touch points throughout the community, and every single day, these staff members work with citizens, businesses, visitors, and those looking to relocate to Carefree to ensure the laws and policies that define this community are executed. So let's begin the conversation. And once again, if you have questions, please don't hesitate to interrupt me. This is meant to be both give and take. So to begin with, under Administrative Services, it acts as the interface between the citizens, property owners, town council, town departments, external governmental entities, nonprofits, and private agencies. Within the Town Management Division under Administrative Services, there are two full-time positions, the Town Administrator and the Office Manager, the Permit Technician, Debbie Domenico. Debbie is a friendly face that greets customers as they walk through the door and helps to direct them to the appropriate party amongst many other duties that she has. For more than half the town's life, we just celebrated our 40th anniversary, I've had the honor of serving this community. During that time, I've been an active member of numerous professional organizations, boards, and received numerous professional recognitions for preservation of community character, management of community infrastructure, and conservative financial practices. Over the past year, from a management perspective, we worked to fill the vacancies of the town clerk, engineering position, and code enforcement position brought on by retirements. From an infrastructure perspective, we procured and managed the recent mill and overlay projects residents have enthusiastically embraced along Tom Darlington and sections of Cave Creek Road. From a public safety perspective, we ensured our traffic patrol is being consistently applied throughout the community. We purchased and installed recently speed display signs to further assist in speed compliance, and we completed crosswalk improvements on Tom Darlington. Additionally, we completed an agreement with Rural Metro to ensure that if the town's emergency assets are used outside the community, that Carefree's level of service will not be compromised. The town is reimbursed for the use of this equipment, and the equipment is fully insured and indemnified if it leaves the community. From a fiscal perspective or financial perspective, we've developed an RFP for auditing services to ensure a new set of eyes examines our town financial process and procedures. This is done every 5 years. The last contract was up, and we approved a new auditor at the last council meeting. And finally, from an organizational perspective, a new organizational strategic plan was developed in partnership with the town council. As we look towards the next fiscal year, we'll be focused on delivering the implementation items outlined in the strategic plan, completing the transition to the digital permitting process, and begin the conversation with Rural Metro's new ownership regarding the terms of a new master contract for fire and emergency services. So that's a little bit about the folks within the Town Management Division. Any questions as far as the Town Management Division? All right, well, let's move on. Up next under Administrative Services is our Town Clerk and Financial Services. There are two individuals within this division, Kristen Cray, our new Town Clerk, and Jim Keene, our Town Accountant. Kristen?
Thank you, Gary. Hello, Mayor and Council. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak with you today. I just finished about 4 months and 2 weeks here in the town. It's been a pretty exciting time for me, getting to know all of you and all of our staff. I'm no stranger to public service. I've been in public service over 30 years. State of New York, City of New York, Coconino County, Glendale, Arizona. And I'm really proud to say that I believe this is my last stop in the government world at the beautiful town of Carefree with you all. So it's a real honor to be working here. I have to say this is one of the most effectively managed local governments I've had the opportunity to work with. The leanest I've ever seen. People here on this team do so much work together. They do things that you would never even expect them to do because it's just what they do and how they think. The loyalty and dedication of this staff has been incredibly impressive to me and inspiring to me as well. Gary Neese works tirelessly to meet the needs of this community and to role model for all our employees here the values that are set by the council. Things like respect, transparency, accountability, collaboration. And that has been really something to see, something that motivates me to be better at my job as well. I wanted to tell you that before I came here, one of the first things I did was I looked at your budget. I looked at the history of the budget of Carefree, because as a public servant, the budget tells me the story. And this town's history shows how well managed and conservative and fiscally responsible the town is, which is certainly a draw for me, for everyone who comes here, for the people that work here, and it should as well be for our residents, because the track record speaks for itself. So today I just wanted to tell you that the budget does tell the story of Carefree. I wanted to tell you a little bit about some of the things that the town clerk and the finance department have accomplished. And the accomplishments don't all go to be attributed to me. Obviously, we had the lovely Candace French-Contreras here working alongside Jim for the first 6 months. And we have managed and prepared and noticed public meetings, public hearings, the Carefree Water Company hearings, our own town meetings, as well as Sky Ranch Community Relations meetings. Candace managed the primaries in July and the general in November. Managing elections is a huge part of what the town clerk does, and is often almost a full-time job during these election cycles, including those PACs and working with the county on our elections process. The town clerk worked at hiring a town engineer and a replacement for herself as well, and a new deputy court clerk over the past year. When I came in, I managed the audit process for the RFP. We got that going right away, and implemented a record storage process that I called the Carefree 40. We took all those files out of that room securely, went through them all with the help of Sam Giselle, our deputy planning clerk, and put those over in the storage facility in the right way. They had to go in plastic storage boxes. There's all these little pieces. I was talking to the mayor the other day, and I said, it's really not the big things. It's the small things that you have to think of and that you're doing every day that you don't realize how much time it takes, right? We are working on developing a new records retention system for the next 40 years. This one will be more in line with using our online system called Laserfiche. And then Jim and I have been working the past few months on working with our vendor. Our financial system is going to be retired. The official date is July of 2026. Therefore, you need to be proactive in this to get everything transferred over. We intend to implement a new financial software system actually in the beginning of fiscal year 2026 if all things go as planned. Another thing was the fee study. The fee study was a critical part for this year's budget because that provides cost recovery for our town. It's the services that we provide as staff to individuals that benefit from those services, that do not benefit the community as a whole. Those things need to be at a level where we're recouping the cost of actually doing that business. So the fee study was a big part of determining how close we are in doing that. And as you know, we're now in the posting requirement for that as well. Just yesterday, we did our 15-day notice of intent to increase or add new fees. So fiscal sustainability is a council strategic priority of utmost importance to myself and Jim Keene. We are responsible for the daily, monthly, and annual accounting of all town monies and our audits. We ensure efficient fiscal management and compliance with statutory requirements on almost a daily basis. We strive to efficiently and proactively manage the town's funds in conjunction with the town administrator, Gary Neese, so that we can afford to do these big projects, maintaining our streets, building and maintaining our infrastructure. We have a fire station. Small town fire station. That's a big cost that is ongoing for the rest of its life, right? Jim Keene serves not only in the role of a financial person, but he also serves in a role as our in-house information technology guy. I mean, he's gracious and helpful to all of our staff and to you, the council, in helping us struggle through some of these IT situations we end up in and making sure that our systems are secure and that we're not subject to any outside threats. In addition, Jim serves as our facility manager for all of our physical assets. Town Hall, Public Works, the fire station, and if you spend any time at Town Hall, you know that once a week the bathroom breaks, so Jim spends a lot of time getting the bathroom fixed, right? I wanted to thank Jim publicly. His knowledge and historical perspective of the town has been really priceless to me over the past few months in learning the fiscal and the general operations of Carefree. So our goal for fiscal year 26 in the financial sustainability area is to replace the retiring financial software with the newest version that will help us be more efficient and more effective in not necessarily managing our finances, because we have an excellent process in place, but in keeping it housed in a system where we can access it even quicker than we do already. The other thing I want to talk about was innovative and high-performing organization. Council priority. I believe that's a real critical part as my role of your town clerk. I'm responsible for the agendas, the requirements of the open meeting law, our records management, which includes a number of permanent records, which is what is preserving the history of this town, which I know is important to all of you. And of course, our town code, resolutions, ordinances, and our elections. And we all know elections are mandated by law, as are most of these things on the list. So to me, being high-performing and innovative in this role is a critical part of making our town a better place for all of us. I also serve as our human resource person some days and our risk manager on other days. And these roles are critical to complying with our federal, state, and local laws. And then the Carefree Water Board is also part of my responsibilities as treasurer and secretary, also of the Utilities, Communities, Facilities District. Try not to say that too fast, right? So I work closely with Greg Crossman and his team over at the water company to make sure that they're meeting all their legal requirements for posting agendas and budgeting as well. It's really exciting to be here in Carefree right now. It's really an honor to work with everyone, and I've had such a wonderful time getting to know all of you. I look forward to what we can do in the next fiscal year, and if you have any questions, I would love to answer them.
Well, thank you. Well done. I do have one question about the financial software. So when we talk about new software for the permitting process, I understand what that's going to bring, but how will this help us in our day-to-day operations?
Some of the processes that we currently have are manual processes. With the new system, we'll be able to automate those processes. So we'll cut down not only time, make us more efficient, such as checks. We're looking at using the system to manage our check process, which we do every week, sometimes even twice a week when we have to, as well as reports. A lot of reports, Jim is currently taking multiple reports, condensing them into one. Now we'll be able to use a reporting format that we use through a system that can spit out any information we want when we need it.
So be less likely to have errors, for example.
True, yes.
Okay.
It'll have a checks and balance system, and those checks and balance systems will still include the human check and balance as well, because we'll continue to do the process that we have. It'll just be online, which makes it flow more efficiently.
Okay.
Just want to say, Kristen, that we're really lucky to have you, and you just hit the ground running. And there was not one hiccup of any process, and so thank you. But I also wanted to say that I totally agree with your comments about, the budget tells the story of the town, because I too, before I moved here, looked at our fiscal position and our budgeting, and I was so pleasantly surprised to see how fiscally conservative we've been, and was one of the primary drivers of why I moved here, because I do believe, as you seem to have stated as well, is that being fiscally responsible is the foundation of good governance, and so we agree on that. So thank you.
Thank you for those comments, Council Member.
I just have a quick question, because we just came back from facilities. So does Jim, he does the facilities for our town buildings and things like that, but I'm assuming does he work also in conjunction with the other facilities?
If you're referring to Public Works,
Yeah.
yes, Travis would tell Jim that, oh, we're having this problem over here with this piece of equipment, we're going to price it out. Jim's involved in that process.
Okay, so
or-
they're not two separate things, they are kind of working together.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
As a matter of fact, Jim hears from the fire department and Public Works fairly regularly on their facility issues.
So if the air conditioner goes out, it falls down to Jim to figure it out,
Yes.
get a solution. Any other questions?
Yeah. On the financial software, what companies are you looking at, and what's the initial cost going to be? And then what is the maintenance cost going to be?
We're working on those contracts right now. Interestingly enough, our current vendor that we've had since 2002, which is Tyler Technologies, they're very well known in the municipal operations field. They provide what's called fund balance, and we've had that since the early 2000s. We're literally going to take fund balance and do the upgrade to the next level, which is called ERP 10, which is compatible with everything we're currently doing and adds to. So at this time, we're doing an actual software upgrade. So as far as the contract goes, the cost will be to transfer over the data. It won't be for the system itself. The majority of the cost will be for the upgrading of the system and transferring over the data, because that's a critical piece for us to make sure that we have a streamlined and seamless process for getting the data from the past 20 years into the new system. And you all will receive much more information about that and a contract as well, hopefully within the next month or so.
But there will be an annual maintenance charge.
Yes, and it'll be similar to what we're already paying, so we shouldn't see a significant increase. It looks like it may be about 10 to 15% more a year because we're using a bigger system.
But the transfer of data should be fairly simple.
You would think.
I mean, no, they can download.
Well,
and
because
then-
it's going into a whole new system, what you have to do is we have to put together a map, for lack of a better word, a roadmap of where to take what we have in the fund balance system and place it in the ERP Pro system, and then add pieces to that map in the ERP Pro system in order to automate some of the things that we do manually.
Yeah. But there'll be an initial contract cost
Absolutely.
for
yes.
that, and then it's a closed system, so it can't be hacked, I'm assuming?
Correct. It comes with the security built in, but then again, we also have our own security systems built in through our town's IT and through our process with dual authentication. The other piece is the system as it stands right now, only 2 people access it, and that's Jim and myself. And we'll continue in that vein as well. Unlike the planning system, which you've heard about, a number of people will be accessing that system because that's touched by everyone. With this, it'll still remain just Jim and myself as mostly accessing what we consider our financial systems.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have one quick comment. I would echo what Sheila said. I think you fit in great, you're very responsive, been awesome, so thank you for choosing carefully.
Thank you very much, council member.
Okay, any other questions? Well, great job, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So I think we're going to handle questions from the public at the end. I'll remember. Okay.
All right, Mayor, moving on, last position in administrative services is communication, led by Madison Garrett. Madison was instrumental in our 40th anniversary, pulling all those details together, and also obviously maintaining the communication channels, which she's done a great job in diversifying and building on. So that being said, I'm sure she's going to give a shameless plug to Earth Day today, but Madison.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I am the Communications Manager for the Town of Carefree. My main role is to centralize and oversee all of the town's communications and marketing efforts. This includes both daily operations and long-term strategic projects, like Earth Day, which is a part of all the event management that I do. My day-to-day responsibilities include managing our communication platforms, both digital, written, and verbal. This includes emails, websites, apps, social media, partnerships with local and national organizations. I also keep our community informed and engaged, from our residents and business owners to visitors and regional stakeholders, through emergency communications, event announcements, project web updates, and more. Some larger scale responsibilities include marketing Carefree to attract locals, visitors, day trippers via our social media campaigns, event promotion like Earth Day, visitor center materials, advertising, and more. I also work on promoting and managing events, especially those held in the Sanderson Lincoln Pavilion. This includes all of Kiwanis's events, Christmas tree lighting, Earth Day, Thunderbird artist festivals. Desert Foothills Land Trust also hosts numerous events in our pavilion. I've also begun working with residents and council members to explore new community events and opportunities. Some accomplishments over the last few years is I've made some great strides in building and maintaining Carefree's brand and communication efforts. I've continued to maintain a consistent presence on social media throughout our email newsletters, and they all include the friendly small town identity that we strive to have. I've organized and supported major events, including all the town's 40th anniversary celebrations. We had quite a few last year, and they were all wonderful successes. I've partnered with Wildjoy, a social media influencer company. They helped us reach over 1.8 million people through social media, and that content continues in the future to drive visibility and awareness. I plan to present my findings on that relatively soon. I distribute weekly and monthly email newsletters, including timely updates on events, road closures, news, and community information. I've improved our website design based on feedback. We've now realized that it's a lot easier to navigate and a lot more user-friendly. I will continue and always continue to make it that way. There's always going to be issues that arise. Successfully, I've separated our Visit Carefree tourism website from our government site, and it's still in development with improved design and SEO underway. I began renovations for the Visitor Center to better serve tourists and local business promotion. Some goals for the next fiscal year I have are focused on building upon the momentum I've created while launching new initiatives that stimulate growth and community engagement. I've collaborated closely with local businesses to increase visibility and foot traffic. I currently am working with them to have a seasonal branding on the town that has a hallmark feel throughout the seasons. I plan to research and apply best practices in government communication, including new digital engagement tools and strategies. Excuse me. I plan to launch Carefree Creations, a merchandise line that will the profits will help to support events and marketing initiatives. We plan a full store launch in around November before people get all their Christmas gifts. I plan to expand our use of SMS, which is text communications, to deliver timely news for road closures, water shutoffs, and other urgent updates. Thankfully, that doesn't happen that often, but we have the accessibility to use that. I plan to update and organize the centralized online portal for all the town documents. It's a tedious but important project to improve access and transparency. I plan to complete renovations on the Visitor Center, including a new flooring, a Carefree Sonora Desert mural to reflect our town's charm and culture identity. I plan to hire local artists to complete this project as well. I also am planning to simplify and stream event management, event planning and management, as I'd say that's a whole nother job I do on itself, and it will help me better manage events alongside my other responsibilities. I plan to deepen community engagement with other local organizations by actively posting on Facebook groups, attending meetings like the Community Alliance meeting, North Valley Outreach Network, and collaborating directly with residents and organizations. Through everything I do, I plan to practice clear communication, build strong partnerships, and develop a deep understanding of our unique character and push that out to our visitors. I aim to create meaningful connections that invite people to live, visit, and love Carefree.
Oh, very good. Don't go away.
Okay.
No, don't go away. Come back up here. We have some questions for you.
If you have any questions.
Now we're going to do some serious communicating. So you do a great job, so thank you. You make us all look good. So you're the best. We've had a few before you, and you're just outstanding. So thank you. I do have a couple of questions. When we talk about improve and consolidate the centralized online portal for town documents, so what does that mean?
So we have a CMS system that holds all of our documents from our previous website, everything just got transferred over. Some of it's not very organized. I mean, some things are kind of just thrown in the same folders with departments. I plan to just kind of break it down by projects, by departments, by years. It's hard to navigate, and I've heard it from residents that are looking for like building permit documents. I plan to make that a lot easier for them to find.
Well, that'd be good, because I think all of us, if we go to a website, we kind of have to feel our way around a little bit to find things, so thank you for that. Okay, go ahead. Any other questions or comments?
I got one
Yeah,
comment
go
about
ahead.
the visitor center, you know, your
Yeah.
renovation you were talking about. I think I may have said this to you, but I think it would be a great thing if we had like a rolling cart that could be just used mobily out there in that area versus people trying to find the visitor center. I've seen it in other towns, and it seems to work well, and I would just think maybe consider something like that down the road.
I haven't heard of that before, but I mean, I'm always willing to explore opportunities that provide information to people walking around town. I mean, we know our town's, it's small and it's very walkable, but it is confusing. I've had people ask me where the sundial is, and they're at the pavilion, and thankfully I know where it is, but they can't see it from there.
I know, because I've stood up there with John and others here on the council, and I just see that people are, oh, this is the visitor center.
Yeah.
Where I was over in Fountain Hills, and they have this big cart, they just push it around, and it's out in the middle of everybody, and people were grabbing things. and I
No,
got
that's
them
not a
back
bad
in
idea
there.
at all. I'd love to explore that. I also try to utilize the Hampton Inn because we have a lot of visitors that stay there, putting stuff there. And I also added the Carefree Visitor Center location on Google Maps, so if people search it up, it'll take them right there. So.
And I think along the same vein about better utilization of the visitor center, figure out a way for the doors to open and lock automatically,
Yep.
so it's accessible.
Yeah,
Is that-
I've put that in the budget for next year to
Good.
make doors that physically open at a certain time every single day. And I plan to increase security in there so they can open on the weekends when we have a lot of visitors, and everything will be locked up and secure.
Perfect, okay.
Yeah, on the Carefree Creations. So what's your initial inventory going to be? Is it T-shirts, hats?
We would do a print-on-demand service, so we wouldn't hold any inventory, but we would look at tote bags, T-shirts, hats, mugs. We would use multiple designs on different mediums, but we wouldn't hold an inventory.
So who's going to print it?
So I will look into more businesses. I've looked at a few local businesses that would do it and would they would print on demand and ship from their location. I've also seen there's companies online that'll do it that aren't necessarily local, but I'll explore all the options.
Online, you have to be careful where it's being made.
Yes, we would
many
order
people-
inventory to check quality and all that before selling anything.
And what are your margins going to be?
I don't know exactly just yet, but we don't plan to make an entire huge profit off this. This is more to just get our name and branding out there and to supplementally help some of our marketing efforts.
Okay.
On that same note, who's going to be doing the designing of these pieces?
I've designed a lot of different things for the town of Carefree. I plan to design them as well. I use some time here at home. I've done digital artwork before in the past, and so I would also explore using local artists if they wanted to get involved. I would love to have them submit designs.
Well, couldn't you do a partnership with Sonora Art League?
I
They're right
definitely
here.
could. I would just have to find people that would be digital artists, not necessarily, or at least people that could turn their art to a digital file.
There's a bunch, I know several of them. I can give you their names.
That'd be great.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, well done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So that concludes the presentations from Administrative Services. We're going to shift gears and go into Community Development. Any questions as far as Administrative Services? All right. So Community Development has 4 divisions in it: Planning and Zoning, Building Safety, Code Enforcement, and Economic Development. So it speaks of the built form and diversifying our revenue stream. So to start off with, Planning and Zoning, we have the S-Squared team of Stacy and Sam, who will be making a tandem presentation here of their responsibilities and accomplishments over the past year.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you, members of Town Council. Happy to be here this evening to introduce myself as your Planning Director and Zoning Administrator. So I do have 2 roles. They're interrelated, but they actually have some separate responsibilities. When it comes to the planning director side of things, that's more of kind of looking at things in a more of a long-range type of view of planning. It also helps support the town's administrator with respect to figuring out the budget, keeping on track of certain bills and things that go through legislation that might be town code related or zoning ordinance related. But getting into sort of the heart of the presentation, well, just so you also know, is that I've been 17 years in the public sector, going on my 11th year here with the town of Carefree. I would say, and as Gary introduced the community development department, I think in my 11 years, this has been like the strongest group of people that we've had. I enjoy working with John Gunn, the building official. We've got CJ DiMaggio, who's a great civil engineer. Sam is the best support that I could ask for. Economic development is just really kind of a good group of us that kind of look at each other and look to each other for guidance and input, and to talk things through when we need to talk things through to find those balances. So our department does provide professional and thorough guidance and coordination of all land planning and development activities. And so that can be anything as from entitlements, such as doing rezones, the built projects, built environments, like our northeast corner, for example. It also looks at policy in our regulatory documents, whether it's our general plan or it could be our zoning ordinance, and as I mentioned, kind of referring to town code. When we do talk about zoning, that's where my other hat of the zoning administrator comes into play, which is sort of more of a current planning type of role, where we look at things such as building permits, permits such as going from an entitlement down to like a site plan for our northeast corner. We also look at things such as single-family homes on mountainside lots or variances at the boulders. So it's a very diverse sort of role or responsibility when we talk about land planning and development activities. Part of that job is to also facilitate, or part of those processes is to facilitate the public participation and awareness of projects and zoning cases through public participation requirements. And based on sort of the description of the things that we look at in the sort of planning aspect of the organization, we have to always find that balance in terms of there are the responsibilities either by state statute or by our ordinances themselves to include the public in terms of any kind of public hearing process, notification process. But we also find that balance for a lot of other types of planning exercises that we do that finds that balance of also respecting private property rights. And because there is a difference between having a public hearing when you're going to do a rezone versus somebody that might do something related to land division like a lot split, which is just something that's administrative. So we implement the town's regulations and policies fairly and consistently, and I would say that's probably the hardest part of our jobs, definitely my job. I think the whole thing about trying to be fair, people, have ideas and expectations from the town, but how it kind of coincides with our regulations and our policies sometimes don't see eye to eye. The most important thing is about being consistent and being making sure that from even though it might be better from one side versus another side, that you just have to be, again, follow through, because a lot of what we make determinations on or try to educate the public on are based on the town's values. Like zoning seems like sometimes it can be so black and white, but there's some gray in there at times too. But what's important about it is that, for example, an aspect of zoning is setbacks. Well, there was a reason for setbacks because the town valued open space from one property to the next. And so trying to manage what can happen in those types of zones, some people might think, well, this doesn't impact anybody, but in the long run, it may, just based on, again, what the town's values and vision are. We manage the Planning and Zoning Division archives, as well as the Carefree Cave Creek Memorial Cemetery. That all falls to Sam, and I'll let her talk about that when she comes up. Some of our accomplishments this year, I'm going to bring what I thought was a really important one for us this year is our participation and contribution in the creation of the town strategic plan. I know you've all, I'm sure, have noticed that there's a lot of weight now placed on the planning and zoning division in terms of projects that are priorities for the town. We're looking at things such as updating our zoning ordinance this year, which, I'm sorry, jumping ahead to the goals. But there are other projects like an open space plan, design guidelines. All of these things were about the built and natural environment, and I thought it was kind of cool that, you know, the town is kind of in this place now that that's what is really important to them, because it's important to me. We did process about 42 zoning applications, pre-application meetings. That includes the Carefree Quarter site plan, which is our northeast corner that we've talked quite a lot about. Economic development, Steve went through sort of the development agreement process. There is some support on our end to making sure in terms of how that agreement plays out in the built aspect of the project. But that's a lot. A lot of these projects could take 1 to 2 to 3 weeks each on their own, you know, not sort of in a set time frame, but, you know, overall. So, you know, we managed that, as well as we ended up having 18 public meetings, public hearings, work sessions with town council, with stakeholder groups, including our circulation plan, again, in concert with economic development. We did review, and when we have all these types of meetings, these meetings just don't say, hey, let's have a meeting and we all show up. I mean, there is preparation, we have to make sure everything is thorough and complete. We do reports, we prepare our presentations, we actually hold the meetings. So there is a lot of time and effort that goes into just bringing a meeting forward. And I'm going to let Sam discuss this a bit in more detail, that we did look at, with the building department, 160 building permits for compliance with zoning. Our ordinance requires that there needs to be a zoning clearance with all building permits. So we're definitely involved with that. My role is more with some of the more complex building permits, but Samantha really takes charge of getting out the day-to-day and the permits and keeping up with the building department. She'll also probably talk about that she covers inspections, and we work together with John Gunn to hash out issues as well that definitely arise, more so lately than I think in the past. We also have coordinated the final stages of the general plan update, which for me, that was a really great accomplishment. It was a very exciting time, I thought, for the town in general, to look about how they foresee, or how we all foresee, its future. That eventually led to its adoption by town council and ratified by the residents. I think it's a great document. It's a thorough document. It's a very user-friendly document. What I also like about it is a very strong town participation component, focusing on a stakeholder group type of model, which really basically looks to the residents and to the stakeholders, could be property owners, business owners, for future success of the town. We continue to contribute to the economic development, circulation, and parking plan, as I mentioned, including coordination with consultant and participation at stakeholder meetings. That effort is led by Steve, but we are definitely there. Again, working in the next to talk about collaborating with economic development in general to meet various members of the development community regarding commercial opportunities in town. This is where Steve and I work pretty closely together. We have to try to find that balance that we look to, because we all understand that you know, our tax base is based on our retail, restaurant, bed tax, about how we generate our funds to operate the town. But from my side of it, we have to also make sure that the outcome of potential future users, future development, sort of meets that aesthetic and quality vision that the town is looking to see in terms of its built environment. We participated and contributed to the creation of the town strategic plan. I did mention that earlier. Again, very important. Effectively facilitated the onboarding and transition of new planning and zoning commission members. This last reappointment, we ended up with 3 members, 1 consistent and 2 new members. But I think, again, we also have a really wonderful group, a dynamic group that I think is going to further a lot of these goals and strategic requirements that are coming down the pike. We've developed and revised along to support Kristen with the planning division fees. And so that's very exciting for us. I think of all the fees, I could be wrong, but ours were really outdated. People were excited to spend, when you know that they're happy to pay for a fee for a site plan, you know that you're not charging enough. And then, again, I'll let Sam go into the management of the cemetery, but we did recently complete a survey, and luckily now we've got CJ DiMaggio has a GIS background, so we're going to have an awesome map available. So our goals for the 25-26 upcoming year, we are looking to manage a comprehensive update to the Carefree zoning ordinance. We've been keeping up with state statute when we've been able to, but the ordinance hasn't had an overhaul since 2004. So it's time. Technology and just other ways that people look at planning and zoning just need to be incorporated into our ordinance, make it a little bit more modern. We're going to update along with that the Carefree Citizen Participation Ordinance, which I think that, again, the general plan has kind of given some great guidance as to the expectation of how we want to see the public involved in many of these public processes. We're going to coordinate and continue to coordinate with economic development to hopefully conclude, the circulation and parking plan and other redevelopment activities, as well as collaborate with all the departments, economic development, building division, code enforcement, to ensure the enforcement of permitted uses in the town center are followed through with. And I think Steve's going to touch upon that more as he kind of discusses his role. But that really seems to be very important. Hopefully it's an important initiative for council for us to be sure that we have to, again, as bringing forward and trying to maintain the quality and expectation that you all as council members have, sometimes we just have to deal with bad offenders and be consistent about it. Lastly, we will continue to manage the Carefree Cave Creek Cemetery, and work again with, as I mentioned, the engineering division on our mapping. I kind of rushed through a lot of things, and I probably forgot half of what I was going to say, but I'm happy to answer any questions. I could go on and on about all the things that we do for the town. So,
We do have one question. So we talk about processing 42 zoning applications. So what falls into that category of those 42 things, just
Sure.
generally speaking?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. So it really starts with a pre-application meeting. And so that's when we say 42. We may have had 42 total, because all of our applications start with a pre-application, and that basically reviews kind of an idea that somebody wants to move forward to develop their property with. It could be anything from a commercial shopping center to a subdivision to a variance. So we walk somebody through the process. But then once they actually would submit, then we go through the reviewing process, making sure that what the applicant property owner wants to accomplish aligns with our regulations and zoning and general plan and things to that effect. And so it's kind of a back and forth to get them sort of on board to get them accomplished with what they are looking to develop or move forward with, at the same time ensuring that it meets all of our policies and regulations. And so then we eventually, when it's ready, it becomes something that moves on to a public meeting agenda. So
that includes variances, it includes mountainside ordinance?
yeah, I mean, we do everything. I don't have my list in front of me, but I mean, everything from you start with a general plan, could be a general plan amendment. Somebody could be looking to rezone their property. You can go from rezone to developing it as more of a site plan. In fact, that's what the northeast corner is about, making sure that we know what the development is going to look like, the architecture is going to look like. And then there will be other cases that, such as a variance, who somebody might be developing a lot where they have a non-conforming condition. Yes, mountainside cases, which are basically, they could be either a single-family home or they could be a subdivision. If somebody was doing a subdivision, they have to comply with our mountainside ordinance. We also, again, so subdivision cases, for example, we're looking at another multifamily subdivision across Cave Creek Road, just north of Cave Creek Road. So that starts with a preliminary plat process, then you go to a final plat process. So there's a lot of different types of processes that may be required if you're looking to develop a piece of property. That could be anywhere in the valley. When it gets to something more built, and John Gunn will probably speak to that, that's where you get to the building permit side. And so again, there's reviews and before we actually get to a point where something might be issued where somebody can actually begin construction.
Yeah, so even these variances and mountainside ordinance reviews take a lot of time and effort.
They can.
Meetings. So you may think they're minor, but they're.
They're definitely not minor.
They're
No, they all
consuming.
take the same amount of time. I mean, it might be something simpler, but there still is sort of the thoroughness of from the very beginning to make sure that it aligns with the town's requirements and aligns with the goals of the property owner or applicant, so.
Okay, so questions from the council?
I have a couple of questions.
Okay.
What percentage are we on build-out? How many lots are left in town?
That's a good question. Are you talking commercial, residential, or just in general?
Residential or both? I mean, we pretty much know the commercial, there are not that many.
We're nearing build-out, but we still, I don't know off the top of my head.
So I believe there's a section in the updated general plan that speaks of build-out. I vaguely recall we're approaching 80% residential.
What does that translate in number of lots?
I don't know that offhand, but the end of the day, a community is always evolving. So even if you reach build-out, there's people that reinvest in their homes and do significant remodels. They might love the house or hate the house and love the lot, or vice versa. So there's always development occurring. So build-out is mainly just the building of new residential, but what we are seeing more of is significant remodels, and that requires a lot of work, a lot of building code issues related to that, things that they're trying to put a square peg in a round hole and doesn't fit our zoning ordinance. So some of these older homes will see more and more significant remodels too, which takes a lot of time.
What I might add, I'm sorry, if I may add, in terms of, particularly with the recent redevelopment plan that we have, we still look at our town center as always evolving. I mean, there's still vacancy, but there's also, there's still reinvestment in many of the properties in town center, and our plan sort of guides what that might look like as well. So kind of in continuation to what Gary is saying is that it's never really finite, because there is something that may come back or be rethought or redeveloped.
Well, you did 160 permits, which is 3 plans a week, and then 175 inspections, which is like 3.3 a week.
Well, that's our division. I mean,
Between the three of you, because you're all involved in it, and you got the new computer stuff, you started implementing. So is that lowering the number of plans you're doing a week? Is it facilitating the time? Because the whole point of buying it was that it would free you up. Has it done that?
I'm not sure. I think the purpose was to free us up. I think it was to actually have an easier process for applicants, because you're finding that throughout the valley, most things, or I would say almost all municipalities are online with their permitting processes. It was more of a simplification for an applicant to be more current with today's development and the way that permitting transpires. It does also make it easier for us to manage the process then on our side in terms of how we review documents, how we store documents, how we would interact with that applicant and the public to get them comments back and forth. So I think it was more of a more current and easier way to facilitate the permitting process.
You also said it reduced the manual, that when you were asking for it, that the way it was done before was you had all the manual plans, you had to go search through the plans, so it was going to eliminate that time.
So there is an efficiency to it, yes, but it doesn't eliminate.
So it was increasing your efficiency, which was part of the
But it doesn't
cost.
eliminate the workload. So, I mean, we are still, addressing permits, we're addressing questions related to permits. We're not just doing one inspection at a time, we're doing several inspections at a time, re-inspections. So, I mean, there's still the same amount of workload, there's still the same amount of permits, it's just an easier way for us to process them.
So it hasn't helped with the
We haven't
reducing
implemented
workload.
it yet. I mean, When you say help, I mean, I think it
Well,
helps the
you had
public.
presented it as we're doing everything manually.
Mm-hmm.
Someone
yeah.
has to get up, go, pull the plans, bring them back, look at it, put them back, you know, to put it computerized. The whole idea was that you didn't have to do that. Instead, you could go to your screen,
Well,
tap in.
Well, that
pull it
also is
up.
part of the receiving and administrative process of it, related to the actual work that comes to reviewing, dealing with the applicant and questions and comments. The workload hasn't changed in terms of the number. It has facilitated, though, the intake and issuance of permits.
Yes, I think it's probably fair to say, excuse me, it probably makes it more efficient for the customer, for the contractor.
I was
as well
trying to
as
say that.
For your
Mhm.
side.
So
I'm
it's,
sure it
That's why
makes
we
you more
increase the
efficient.
fees too, because of the convenience, right? Part of it.
But the other thing you were talking about is redoing the code. So who works on that? Are you gonna be doing that with Sam? Or are you bringing outside consultants in to help with it? And what is that cost gonna be for the consultants? And
yes.
what's the timeframe on it?
So that we are asking to do an update to the zoning ordinance as well as the citizen participation ordinance. No, that is a full-time job to do that. So we are looking to ask for a consultant. Though I would say it's very similar to the cost of the general plan. I don't have a cost available at the moment, but I would say it's very similar to the general plan in terms of time and effort, and a consultant's input and participation. We could do that, but it would probably take us twice as long because there's a knowledge and a learning curve that a consultant that does this on a regular basis for communities has that team, he has that background, he or she has that background. So I would say that it's going to be not as long as the general plan because the general plan had the election component of it, but in terms of the time and effort and stakeholder input, it'll be at least a year, if not a year and a quarter, to accomplish from start to finish an update to the ordinance.
But you will have to be doing, they're an outside consultant.
Well, I'll be
So
managing the
your team
consultant.
will
Mhm.
have to
Well,
be
we-
giving them, like we did with the general plan.
Right. Well, we didn't do nothing just because we had a consultant. I mean, I had to coordinate regularly with the consultant. I had to understand the information they were presenting. We worked as a team to discuss the information that they were looking to present or to incorporate. We helped to coordinate a lot of the meetings with them. So it's not that you hire a consultant and then we're off doing other work.
No, that's what I'm saying. It's going to take a lot of your
It still will
time.
take a lot of time.
And is it going to be, you know, the problems we've had is no enforcement on any of the codes. You have places that are really, should be retail, that aren't retail, they're storage.
I definitely
And it's
agree.
been that
Mhm.
way for years. So is that going to be, are we
Yes.
moving forward stronger with enforcement? Because it
Yes.
affects the town.
We are. I think when we get into those conversations, yes, I think that we found that some of the language in the zoning ordinance could be tightened so that it would allow for better and consistent and straightforward enforcement of the code. So I think that's going to be pulled into a lot of these conversations. Working with economic development, I think they're actually tasked with creating a code enforcement policy, which I think is really good because I think for us we need your support to say that, because sometimes we have to tell the businesses we like things that they don't want to hear. But I would say that, yes, going back to your question, a lot of that goes back to tightening not only the zoning ordinance, but also town code that can help alleviate some of these problems that we have in our town center.
Which is, from what you're saying, a good year and a half to 2 years away from being able to.
I wouldn't say two, but I mean, yeah, I mean, it takes time to, I mean, we had to, you know, now that you're bringing it up in that manner, we haven't really determined how this process is going to move forward. I mean, maybe one thing or one way we can do it, sometimes a community might do from start to finish and adopt their ordinance at the end. Maybe we'll talk with our consultant and say that these are our focus areas and we want to adopt sections as we go along. So, I mean, these are all things that if those are concerns that we can try to work with them and incorporate into our process.
So we could prioritize.
Absolutely. You know,
Probably
and
the
you'll let
number
us know,
one.
the stakeholders will let us know what those priorities
Well,
are.
I think the residents would tell you the number one is you know, like in front of the post office, which is a storage, and everyone goes to the post office.
We know, yes.
So everyone you talk to is, when
Yeah.
is something going to be done?
Understood.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'd like to make a comment. I'd like the community to realize how lucky we are to have you. Having worked with you on many projects, I see that you go into it very fairly, and you bring a wealth of experience. You know best care practices. You're aware of some of the best projects that are going on in the valley, and I think that brings a proper perspective in terms of evaluating the projects that come before you.
Thank you.
So I think that the way you handle things is just
Well,
very
thank you.
up forward.
I appreciate that, and I appreciate your support. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I would just kind of like to say something similar. I know you have a lot on your plate and you're always super, super busy and you handle so many different things. But I come and I call her, I email her, and I go in and I see her all the time. And she never tells me that she's too busy, and which she could, right? And so she's great. So she answers all my questions. And I will say, you know, kind of in connection with going online, which I think that is going to help the applicants. I know I've done stuff and it'd have been nicer just to look it up. But a lot of the stuff that you do doesn't change, because I know when we have conversations about a project and then you go and you discuss with whomever it is and you give them ideas, they don't always just say, okay, great, and do it and come back and it's done. It's like, it goes back and forth and back and forth. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'd be like crazy. Can you get them to, you know, do it?
Make a decision.
But it doesn't work that way, right? I mean,
Right.
that is how that is. It's a little bit of give and take in a process. So I appreciate,
Thank
you know,
you.
all of that. And I know you're saying with the timing of updating our code and all that, it wasn't a year and a half to 2 years. It was like a year to year and a quarter or so.
Right.
But I think it would be great if we could, and that's a great that you can talk with the consultants on kind of sectioning it. Because I think what would be great is if we could update one section, make some improvements in town center, residents and community members can see that. It's like, wow, this is great, right? And then we could do the next one, and I think it would just help that whole process.
Right.
But thank you.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you very much. Thank you so much.
Okay, then I have to say, oh, sorry. Oh, no, just, I too contact
you.
Stacy a lot, and she is all very, very
I'm not used to this.
responsive.
Thank you.
I was just gonna add to what Colleen said, I think she's right. If we could do that town center code type, do that first to get that out of the way, because that seems like the sticking point with everybody's out here.
It could be, that's true. Let's talk about that, because I think that kind of looks at our strategic plan a little bit differently, but we can definitely kind of work through and
I just think
figure
you'd
it out.
get more bang for the buck if you did it.
Yeah, I think that's what people are kind of, well, you know, it does feel like that's kind of a focus when we're here in this room, but then also a lot of times when you're dealing with a property owner who's got they're building a home, you know,
Yeah, no, I get it. I see.
that's kind of their focus, so.
I think bang for the buck is exactly the right word, because we have properties which could, which may not be in compliance, which if we got them into compliance would generate revenue for us.
Right, right.
That's where I was going with that, yeah.
Thank you. Gary, just for one more moment, and then I got Sam, she's going to kind of wrap things up. So thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Well, first of all, I had all this stuff written down of the things that I do. I need to thank all of you, whether it's commissioners, council people, Gary Neese, Kristen, Stacy most of all, John Gunn, Travis, everybody, engineering, to be exposed to such cool, educated, amazing people. And I'm ordinary folk. So I've always prided myself on being dependable and smart to know who to surround myself with. And I know I'm getting choked up, but it's important to me. I've been with the town for 6 years as planning coordinator and deputy town clerk. I achieved my certified municipal clerk designation in 2017, and am proud to work alongside Stacy and Kristen and many of the duties that I do. In my capacity as planning coordinator, my duties include overseeing planning and zoning application submittals and proper routing, reviewing building permit applications, ensuring compliance with planning and zoning regulations, and ensuring adherence to the conditions by the Planning and Zoning Commission and Development Review Board, along with the Board of Adjustment. Additionally, I perform pre-grade inspections on building sites, final site inspections, and conducted in alignment with the planning and zoning requirements, making sure that they are complying with our ordinances. My responsibilities also encompass the assignment of addresses to undeveloped parcels, along with the maintenance of a comprehensive digital archive system for all planning-related records. I went through and digitized all of the addresses, so each address has a file, and we're slowly adding to those files, and which will make the migration for the new permitting process. Hopefully, they're going to utilize those address files and make it a more streamlined process. In accordance with the Arizona State Revised Statutes, we work hard to keep our records management system up and running. Kristen and I have worked hard with the clerk's room, digitizing documents, going through and as our revised statutes dictate. I perform monthly data reports to Maricopa County, the Census Bureau, and other relevant agencies, ensuring accurate and timely communication. It's near and dear to my heart is the Cave Creek Carefree Cemetery. I've coordinated interments and sales, along with working directly with mortuaries and the families. I carry out attention to detail and accuracy, and I've created a digital database there as well of the plots and related records to meet regulatory requirements, ensuring the expectations of the families served are met with dignity and respect. As deputy town clerk, which I began in the town of Telluride and carried on when I moved here and began with the town of Carefree, I assist with various clerk-related duties when called upon, and working closely with related staff moving toward the implementation of the town's new permitting software, Granicus, which Stacy spoke to. The system will enhance the efficiency of building permits, business licenses, and also short-term rentals. It's a big onboarding, and it takes a team, and we have a very good team. And we're really looking forward to bringing that in. There are so many steps in the manual process. We're one of the few left in the area that aren't digital. So we get a lot of pushback from applicants coming into the town, and it's like, gosh, I had to drive all the way up here to submit, and I had to pay for all these rolls of paper, and so on and so forth, resubmittals, things like that this will really be wonderful. My efforts are also focused on upholding the integrity and the confidentiality of municipal records, ensuring that the records retention schedule is applied correctly, and maintaining archives with precision. I provide notary services. I balance the town's cash register drawer weekly and support the front office and several key administrative functions when necessary. And I must add to Gary's comments about Debbie. She can't be here because she's at the town hall, at the front counter. She's the glue that holds us all together. Without Debbie, we wouldn't even have a town. We wouldn't be open. She does everything. If she doesn't know it, she learns it. She's professional. She's a joy to work with. She's dependable, and I don't know what we would do without her. My continual professional development remains a priority, with the commitment to expanding my knowledge and skills in municipal government. I learn a lot by being with all these amazing people, but it's important to stay educated. In summary, the focus of these roles is on service, excellent accountability, ensuring that all our processes, whether related to planning, building, or public records, or citizen report, are executed smoothly, accurately, and in alignment with the Carefree's core values. Thank you for your time, and I'd be willing to answer any questions if you have any.
Yes, well, I think you wear almost more hats than anybody. You have your hands in everything, so
Thank you.
You do a great job, thanks.
Thank you.
I do have one question about the cemetery. So how much is it occupied, like 75% or?
It's about, I would say 90%. And we have about 379 interments reservations that are in there right now.
Okay, so that includes reservations.
Yes. And we're to the back area already, the last 3 sections. And there's drainage that goes through, so, yeah. Doing the survey was interesting. They came and they surveyed, x-rayed the whole cemetery and laid out where existing people are. And there were some that we didn't even know were there because it was before we were deeded the cemetery. So it was good to have that. And creating our new map has been great. So
Yeah, you take very good care of having it managed and
Thank you.
presented well.
thank you.
Thank you.
I have one comment. The electronic plan submittal is a really big benefit to architects. It's not only the driving time, but when you log in plans, the plans get redlined, it's customary. So we have to reprint those plans. And by the time we've done all of that, we've spent $500 in printing. We've spent equally that amount of time in transportation going back and forth. So, you know, that all adds up.
It does.
And it shortens the time to deliver the plans.
Right.
So it's a big benefit.
It is a big benefit. And it enables people to do plan review on both sides from just about
Exactly.
anywhere.
Yep.
So it's going to be
So you can spend your
fantastic.
time elevating the plans rather than
Right.
Exactly right.
kicking it down the road.
That's right. And staff can spend more time like diving into the plans rather than
Exactly.
pushing stuff around.
And we can all be working on them simultaneously, which is nice. We don't have to wait for one person to be done doing a plan review in order to route it to the next person. And the time Debbie has to spend stamping sets of plans in and writing in on the permit number and filling out a folder and making labels, and it's going to be wonderful. It's going to be great.
Less chance.
Very efficient.
Less chance for error, too, I
Right,
would imagine. Yeah.
exactly. And my monthly reporting to the Census Bureau and things like that, building permit information is going to be streamlined. I'll be able to, get reports off of there in order to do that, which will be nice. Our business licenses, short-term rentals, those applications are going to be on there as well.
Anything else? Okay. Well
Thank
done.
you.
Thank you.
Nice job, Sam.
Moving on, so the general plan speaks of the vision of the community. The zoning ordinance speaks of the uses and the intensity of those uses. The building code looks at the vertical element of how you build. How do you build a safe building? So it's the instruction manual of how you build within a respective community. We do not have a building official at this point in time. We've advertised this position for the better part of 2 years after our building official of 24 years retired. We have not had luck. It's one of the more difficult positions to fill. There's a shortage within the trades. There's a shortage in building officials and building inspectors. We contract with Brown and Associates and have for a number of years to do building inspections for us. They also provide building services, and so they're temporarily providing us the chief building official services through John Gunn. John Gunn has probably over 30 years of experience in applying building codes to many communities throughout the Phoenix metropolitan area, has probably done work in almost every community throughout the Phoenix area. So he comes with a wealth of knowledge. We still have that position advertised, and we are still searching for the right person. And as you can see, you heard from many of the staff thus far, and some of the recent new hires. We're trying to find the right pieces of the puzzle, and finding the right piece there is critical for us. So we'll continue our search, but I'll pass it off to John Gunn, who'll explain a little bit about the building department and what they have been up to the past year and where we're going next year.
Good afternoon, folks. I am John Gunn. I'm with Brown and Associates. I'm working as your building official, your plans examiner, and your building inspector. I also answer questions, whether it's over the counter, at the phone, emails, virtually anything. I work with architects, engineers, all different type of construction professionals, superintendents, electricians, plumbers, mechanicals, what have you. One of the things that I've seen over the past couple years, I don't know if you've all seen it, but we're dealing with a lot of homeowner builders, people that are coming in, pulling their own permits and becoming their own general contractors. That takes a lot of time. They're nice people. I like working with them. That doesn't mean that they know the difference between 277, 480 and 110, 208. That doesn't necessarily mean that they know what a footing is as opposed to a stem wall. There's a lot of explaining that has to go on. And it starts from the building process, just trying to get a permit. They come in, ask me to sit down with them. Could you tell me what you mean when you wrote this? Could you tell me what you mean when you wrote this? And that particular learning curve just continues all the way to final. But again, it takes time. But we have noticed that there's about a 30% population of the homeowner builder, whether it's the new single-family home, whether it's an addition, remodel, what have you. I don't know if I could attribute that to DIY or a lot of some of these other programs that make things look so easy that you can just do it yourself, but that is obviously up. We've done a lot of inspections over the year. We've permitted probably 120,000 square feet of new single-family residence. We've done the commercial safety inspections for the new businesses to provide C of Os. For the fiscal year 2024-2025, about 175 permits, single-family, remodels, additions, solar, swimming pools, you name it. We do a lot of stuff. The thing that I notice when I look at these numbers is, again, it's a small town, yet it's just us. It's kind of amazing coming from a lot of other municipalities that have multiple people that you can work with, that, okay, you take this half of the city, I'll take this half of the city, I'll see you when you're done with your inspections. Doesn't happen here. And it doesn't mean that if I have 12 inspections in one day, that it doesn't mean that I can't just forget about the person that called and left a voice message for me or sent me an email. I still have to come in and do that as well, which we do. Everybody has talked about the digital program that has begun. Can't say that I'm a big fan of it, but I do understand how it will help the external user. I'm still kind of a paper and a pencil kind of a guy. I like that, but I understand when somebody wants to drive from Chandler to come up here to drop off a solar or some other type of project, it becomes a little bit much. But we always tell them, listen, you can go get something to eat. We got great places to go have lunch and do stuff. I mean, as long as you're here. But again, like I said, hopefully, I'm not sure how this is all going to work out. It took a little longer for this particular company to start putting this digital system together for us because we've just now starting to learn it. Hopefully it won't take us long. I'd like to think that in 2025 we could implement this digital system, but we have to know how to use it. To try to just rush it, put it up there, and then we're just making a bunch of mistakes is going to make us look a little silly. So we're going to go with a lot of trial and error. Maybe today I'll be the person that's trying to submit. Maybe I'll have Debbie be on the other end to see, what's the problem with what I'm submitting as opposed to what she's receiving in the back office. Come up with different ways to try to weed out all of the different potential problems as we see them. We're not going to get all of them, but we'll try. Still working with Rural Metro as far as any of the commercial projects in town, as far as building safety, certificate of occupancies, that sort of thing. Ryan Work, Rural Metro, great people to work with. I like them, they like me, it works out great. For 2025, 2026, I'd like to have the digital system up and running, quite honestly. I'd like to be able to update our codes. I'd like to come up to the 2024. We're currently now at the 2018, which, okay, that was a jump from where we were at the 2003. But we don't want to get too far behind with code cycles. As the industry continues to move forward, things change, things evolve. If we stay in an older code cycle, we're just going to fall behind, and then we're not even going to be able to know what changes happened in the 21 or the 24. So it would be nice if we could do that this fiscal year. I know I'm swinging for the fences on that one, but try. And to Gary's point, you know, if you hire a building official, I guess you won't be seeing me anymore. So I'm not sure how I feel about that. It may be a long drive, but I do enjoy working with everybody. I was going to keep it short and sweet, and I think I'm still going to keep it short and sweet. Any questions?
Yes, so John, I have a question. When we move to the 2024 code, how involved is that? I mean, is it, we have to rewrite our town code, or we just accept it? How does this work?
Well, what most municipalities do is they wait for somebody else to adopt the code so that they could utilize their model. And then they'll just take whatever exceptions or whatever ordinances that we have and intertwine it into the code. So there isn't a whole heck of a lot that we have to do as far as rewriting the entire code. We just have to identify what we want and what we don't want.
So especially when we're implementing and learning how to use this new software, I mean, is it realistic to think we could do both of these things in the same year? I don't know the answer.
I said I was swinging for the fences.
Okay.
It's a goal. If we could get it started, if it doesn't happen by 2026, okay.
Are there
I'm not going to lose sleep over it, but I think that is something that we need to do. Quite honestly, the next code cycle wouldn't come out until 2027 anyway, but if we could at least get ahead of the game and potentially go in that direction, if it happens this year, great. If it doesn't, it will. I think, in my opinion, it needs to happen. We can't just keep falling behind code cycles.
So other municipalities have incorporated the 2024 code into their code already?
It's pretty typical for most municipalities to skip a code cycle, so you don't have to keep buying books and keep going through the process. So it's not uncommon to skip a code cycle and then go get the next one, the 6th year. So we're at 18, like to get to the 24, and the codes don't change until 27. So I think it's an achievable goal.
Okay.
I have a comment. A lot of people think that the zoning and the building safety are kind of one package. And I want to make it clear that the zoning is more about lifestyle and visual benefits to the community, whereas you're looking after building safety and longevity of the building. So the things that you're looking at enable the building to have a much longer life. Then if some of these things are overlooked, the building is short-lived. Not to mention safety, which is a big list, from gas to the ability of the structure to maintain itself. It's very involved.
There's a lot to it.
So I appreciate your knowledge of the codes. I've never met anybody that knows the codes better than you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So question on that with what you just said about the codes. So the 2024 code, so when you go to do an inspection for something, you look at those codes, or are you using our 2018 codes, and then would a builder or somebody come and say, no, you need to use the more updated codes? I mean, do we ever run into that?
No. And the reasoning for that is the permit process. So right on the cover page, you have to state what our current code cycle is, which is the 2018. So when we're doing our design and reviews, they're based upon those codes. Something may have changed in a later code, we haven't adopted it yet. And depending upon what it is and what have you, you know, if it is something that is adopted in a later code, we could at least entertain the thought, okay, you know, it's in the code now, even though it wasn't then. It's something to discuss and then go forward.
I just want to pass a compliment on to you.
Oh, thank you.
Because I've seen you quite a bit. I'm the house between the two garage builds and the boulders.
Yeah.
And you've been out, Jay's the contractor.
Mm-hmm.
And he said to me, I want to tell you, he said, the guy knows his stuff. And I like working with someone that comes out and when he has a criticism or a correction, he's just not making something up to justify his job. He said, the guy really knows what he's doing.
Thank you.
So I want to pass that on to you.
Thank you.
Great. Okay, that's very nice, Diane, thank you. Okay, any other questions? Okay, John.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, Mayor, moving on. So now we went through building safety. We have a home built, people move in, we have neighbors, they start pointing fingers. Whether it's a barking dog, whether it's lights, whether it's RV, you know it. You've heard the complaints before, and that's why we have code enforcement. That's why most communities have code enforcement. Our code enforcement officer retired in November. We are lucky enough to find somebody that has 34 years of law enforcement background, 24 years at DPS, and another 10 years as a detective with the city of Phoenix. Ruben Contreras joined us about a month and a half ago. He's not here today because he's actually getting training. So part of his job is to act as the bailiff of the court. There's mandated training through the administrative office of the court, security training, and he's there today to receive his certification. He's also working on his level 1 certification for a code enforcement officer, so he will be receiving that over this next year. You can see on this slide that quite a bit of activity in code enforcement. They just don't do code enforcement, but they process business licenses, short-term rentals, and also act as the emergency operation contact for the town of Carefree. They then coordinate with our first responders in rural metro and MCSO and the county. So it's a collaborative effort. Ruben will be part of that process and part of the planning for future scenarios within the town. So Ruben acts as the bailiff, code enforcement officer, processes various business licenses, vendor certificates, estate sales, short-term rentals, and also when Debbie's not up front, he's the backup to Debbie. So once again, under the philosophy that we share responsibilities, Ruben's there to back her up. So that is our community development department. A lot shared with you. Any questions as far as, excuse me, no.
You can spare everything.
So I know Steve's going to make it short. Yes. So economic development is about wealth generation. Wealth generation in Carefree is about diversification of our revenue stream, and we've spoken in the past about our sales tax centric model, and that we're laser focused on diversifying our economic engine. Steve is an important part of that role, and he'll talk a little bit about what he's focused on over the next year and what he has accomplished over this past year.
So dot point one, thank you, Gary. Why we do economic development. But yeah, to follow up, it is, we're a sales tax based town. We're fairly unique in the space in Arizona. We're one of the few communities that just don't have a property tax, and it's just the nature of the way Carefree's run. And so it's very important and vital that we focus on not just creating sales tax, because it's how we do that, and it's making sure that it's sustainable, that it's diverse, but most importantly that as we go through this, that there's a quality of life factor that people expect. And some people want a lot of vibrancy, yet some people want to keep it quiet and slow. And so there's just a mix of all that, and how all that fits together is actually really important. And so, and the way we look at this is we have 3 areas in town that really allow us to do what we need to do from an economic development perspective. and that's the Carefree Highway and Cave Creek Road intersection, the northwest corner of Tom Darlington and Carefree Highway, and then the town center. And Savannah's kind of with that part of that town center. And so when you look at those areas, most communities, some communities have dozens of areas that they can focus on. We have 3. And so we just have to make sure that as we look at these 3 areas that they do provide that level of sustainability and diversity. So looking at types of uses and types of development that are complementary to each one, and that one area doesn't take away from another area, that everything kind of fits together in a full puzzle. So as we move forward into the future, these things can all hit on all cylinders, and we can maximize the type of revenue that we want to create here in the town. With that, I just want to kind of focus on, really this last year in 2024-25, this last budget year. It was pretty obvious what the community's focus was from the residents, what the focus was from council, and what my focus was as far as the economic development planning process, and that was the northeast corner of Carefree Highway and Cave Creek Road. And so we spent a significant amount of time working with the property owner, Empire. We worked with them and their development partner in bringing in Diversified. We've spent a lot of time working on engineering issues that are related to that site. And these are significant things that we needed to work through, and then looking at the economics of how a deal could happen to maximize the type of development that was approved by the community with the general plan and the zoning amendment that was done just a few years ago, or 5-6 years ago. And so, as to Stacey's point, it's a very complicated process, and at the end of the day, when you get there, you don't want to try to sell yourself short. And so where we are right now and moving into the future on a project like that is trying to make sure that we can get something like that to construction. So, and then also looking at some of our vacant space, it's one of the things that brought up, I know, Councilman Johnson, that's something that you're interested in making sure that we're on top of that. And so we, continuously worked with the CVS, the ownership there, and trying to find something to come into that space. Can I say we specifically brought the rare earth to that? No, but did we work with them cooperatively and trying to find the types of things we'd like to see there? Yes. And then the other area was the town center. And in this instance, when we were focusing on town center, a lot of what we focused on this year was the guest experience. And, we had the 40th anniversary. Councilmember Roth was very integral to working on that. And so, really looking at ways that we can celebrate and bring people to the town center so they can enjoy their community. And so, Madison's talked about some things that were important, like, and she's worked on one of the things we started, like the Sanderson Saturdays, and she's really done a great job of taking off with that, just enhancing this guest experience that we have in town. And it's not just the events and the activities and all of those things that come together, but it's also looking at the maintenance that takes place on the facilities that we have. And so if you look at the gardens look wonderful. And I can tell you, when I first got here, 5 years ago, I thought they looked overgrown, they looked a little old, they looked a little tattered, and they could have used a little TLC. And I think, we've put a strong commitment into that. And I think Travis and the Public Works guys, they do a really great job, and including our landscape guys. So it's great to see it all come together, and we're starting to get positive feedback from residents and from the businesses that they can really notice that the area is improved. Councilmember Miller, us working together and putting the improvements that we did in and along Easy Street for the landscape, that's starting to mature. We have the benches there. They serve a dual purpose of just being great for visitors, but also for the businesses that are around, that those seats and chairs and those things are around, where people can wait for their table or just wait for somebody while they're shopping. And so it's really, I think, enhanced the total experience that we see within the town center. And then the other one is just working with businesses and property owners. And so that's one of the efforts that we really focused on this year for economic development, was just making sure that we can build and maintain those relationships. I'd like to say they're perfect across the board. They're not, but I would say for the most part, we do have open dialogues and decent dialogues with almost all the property owners. And I think most of them are really seeing the value that's going on and where that value is in the town, and looking forward to doing things that are positive, including the gas station site. We're working with Spanish Village, and you can see what like Don Little's done with his properties, and expanding the Black Mountain Coffee Shop. And then it comes back to the experience as well. Not only on the public side have we been looking things, but the private side, the experience has increased as well. and adding music at night and adding dinner. And so it's really created, I think, this level of vibrancy that's really starting to grow. And I think it's just going to continue to catch and take off. The focus for 2025, obviously, number one by far is making sure that we start construction on the northeast corner. That is the number one. The number two is going to be making sure that we work cooperatively with the property owner at Bashas' and their representatives, that whenever ACE finally ends up leaving, that we can look to backfill that particular space, because, again, it is a somewhat significant chunk to our revenue that we just need to make sure that we're managing. Again, along with, and Stacy's touched on it, with planning and with engineering, we're going to finalize the circulation, parking, and signage plan. And when I say finalize, I mean I really do mean it. It's going to get done this year, and so hopefully we're going to be having a workshop coming up in May on the 12th with both the council and the P&Z, and I think that's a great opportunity for us to all together really evaluate everything and move this thing close to where we can all make decisions to get this part of this done. One of the things when we talk about economic development, and it always comes from marketing, and I look at it, the 4 Ps of marketing. You have product, position, price, and promotion. And so I always try to look at the balance around those things. And we've put a lot of effort into what we call product development over the last couple of years. And every once in a while, and we've always done a good job, I think, marketing and promoting with what we have. But at some point, you always have to come back and evaluate what is it, who we are, and where is it we want to be, and where are we going, and what's the type of customer that you will want to look at. Because that always helps you adjust and look back and morph into, well, how do we improve our product, and then how do we effectively spend our dollars to promote. And so one of the things that we are going to be doing is focusing on that positioning strategy this year. I've talked to businesses about this. They're super excited about it. And this isn't just about looking at positioning for how we want to look at the town center and this business community, but it's also looking at the types of events that we want to have, and looking across the board at how this is, what we see for the immediate and long-term future for Carefree. Because at the end of the day, not only do we need to create an environment that allows us to generate sales tax, but we want to create an environment that the people who live here enjoy. And because otherwise, what's the point? And so that's what we're going to be focusing on. We'll support with engineering on the signage rollout, the comprehensive signage plan. We're down to, I think we're looking to select somebody, and I'll let CJ, if he's going to go into that, talk more to selecting somebody and rolling that out and hopefully getting that done by the end of the year. And then going to the code stuff. And so I don't know how economic development keeps getting thrown in this code and stuff, but I get why, because, we're on the front lines, and it's easy to ask the question about businesses, what's going on with this business, what's going on with this space. And so I would like to say that I'm taking the lead on that because it's on a plan that says I take the lead, but really it's going to be a collaborative effort. And so when we talk about the code, there's code enforcement, and then there's the codes. And so one of the things that we're going to need to focus on is what's the policy for enforcement, and then what are some of the codes that need to change to help us be able to enforce the types of policies that we want to create. And so in the short term, we really do need to focus on, and we've talked about policies that we're going to need to put together and procedures that allow us to, when we do something, because if you're accusing somebody of something, or you're going to go after somebody and penalize them for something, and in some cases these things are actually criminal allegations that you end up making, you need to make sure that you're doing it correctly. And when talking with Ruben, somebody who comes from law enforcement, it's clear that if he's going to be going into court to ask for something, that we have gone through all of the proper investigations, we've dotted every I, we've crossed every T, because what we don't want to do is set ourselves up for failure or set ourselves up for liability. So we are working on those things. But what will happen when we have a policy, we want to bring these things back to leadership and let leadership make decisions and get behind these solutions to allow the staff, because enforcement is not easy to do, and to go out there and be able to get the job done. And then when we do it fairly, we do it equitably, and that's how it's going to be done across the board. One of the things we'll work on is the rollout of the facade improvement program. Again, this comes back to now looking at some of the product development things, and it's always, we're looking at our particular buildings, and we've seen some improvements, but we know that this environment can still look to have more improvement. And as far as us being in a redevelopment area, we have something to gain by businesses investing in themselves here. And so for us to be able to be a part of that solution and help leverage private redevelopment or revitalization of buildings, we're going to focus on that. And the program should be coming pretty quickly here back to the Economic Development Advisory Board. And as we get through the budget process, we'll get that approved and get that kicked off as soon as the budget year starts. And then we'll continue really with the redevelopment plan, which hopefully we'll have the circulation and parking plan as attachment to that. And as far as economic development goes, we've taken on a significant amount of responsibility to implement the implementation plan inside of that redevelopment plan. And so, but again, it's all collaborative. We'll be working directly with all the various different partners here and the stakeholders that are within the community to accomplish that. And then the other thing that I just want to touch on is one of the focuses we have is not just on tangible things and results that we get done, but it's also about process. And I think in a small community, one of the things I always wanted to envision is that we would really be able to work collaboratively with the leadership of a community, whether it's electeds or whether it's the appointeds. And so I'm really excited that the Economic Development Advisory Board has really embraced the idea of having these workshop type meetings where we can dive in and really digest and discuss and go through issues that are related to not to economic development, but it could be other things that are related to things that are economic development. And it's just been such a blessing because it's not just the meetings, but it's also that the engagement that you get from these members who will call or come in and go through issues that they have or provide advice. And when you're a team of one, and it's very difficult, and you think you can have all the answers, but you don't. And so while we talk about staff, and this staff, by the way, one of the most talented as far as experience and talent and everything else, and where we lack experience with somebody like Maddie, the enthusiasm and the skill set and everything else that she brings to the table is just incredible. I mean, it comes across all the way around, and I know it's difficult for Gary to assemble a team like this, but he's done a good job. But more importantly, the leadership of this community is phenomenal. And if you look across this dais right here, and even Cheryl's missing, the level of experience that you have, both not just in years, but just in the type of experience that is there, and the level of experience you bring to the table is insane. And then it goes back to the Economic Development Advisory Board and their ability to weigh in. And so across the board, the leadership of this community is just, I think, is one of the best I've ever seen in my life. So kudos to everybody, and I think we've got so much opportunity and there's so much positivity that as we move forward. The other thing that I do, and I don't know how I got it, I just think it was just because it was fun, is managing the Sanderson Lincoln Pavilion. And so we added some new lights this year. All the AV equipment's working really well. We can handle really nice, moving forward, we can handle larger events now. We can do a lot of cool stuff. And we've done it very, very cheaply. When I went and looked at consultants and other people to come in and fix things, it was super expensive, and we ended up fixing the lights for like $4,000. And we've spent very minimal money being able to, I think, create a really high quality community space. And so that's the other commitment, is to keep expanding the usability of the Sanderson Pavilion and even finding ways that we can monetize it to help the town. And then I just want to go through a snapshot as we look at success stories, because success is, you can measure the things that you've done, but it's how does the community look? And our year-to-year over visitor traffic has been increasing over the last 4 years. And I get it, some of it was COVID related, and of course COVID had nobody. But even then, as we start to look at what the evolution of is that increase in traffic, it's been pretty extensive, right around 35 to 40% across the board. And even over this last year, we're probably seeing somewhere right around a 3 to 4% increase, because we're doing really well. But there's more to be had, and so that's one of the things we'll just continuously focus on. We've seen steady, Gary's going to go through this, and we went through this with the forecasts and the economic update, and then the opportunity update that we present to council. And Gary will touch upon this through his presentations in the budget. Our retail revenue, our hospitality revenue is increasing year over year as well. And so we're in a very, very positive position, and we're moving forward. And then, again, it just comes back down just the general consensus or general feeling. I'm getting a lot of people who are calling or sending me emails just saying, look, things are headed in the right direction. They like and they enjoy being in their town center. And here's some things that we'd like to see I don't think Jan Neal just left, but one of the things she asked for, discussed was, she likes the benches, and is there ways we can add more benches so when people are watching music, they have a comfortable place to sit. So we'll look at all these kinds of things that are qualitative factors. But what I want to end with is that we have such a good opportunity to all come together and be able to solve some really difficult things and deal with really difficult issues. We're going to be looking at the RFP potentially for the redevelopment of the town hall site. And I think everybody's got their own ideas about what's going to be successful and what's not. But, what we're going to do is make sure that the community is included, that the leadership's included, that stakeholders are included, and we're going to try to all work together to come to a consensus. And that's an important thing. And so as I speak to everybody that wants to participate in these things, just people are invited, and let's just make sure that we all work together in positive fashion to be able to come to conclusions that are going to be the best thing for the community.
Yeah, well, thank you. Good. Diane.
A couple questions.
Mhm.
So in October, we were told that hurry up, and we had to have a vote on going forward with the northeast corner before the new council people were seated, because they had 15 letters of intent. And it had to be voted on in November so they could break ground in the first quarter of this year. What happened? What are the letters of intent? I know they can get out of the agreement, so where are they?
Yeah, so where they are right now, I mean, as far as the letters of intent and what happened in November, I mean, to be honest with you, I sat there with 104 fever, giving a presentation I could have done in December myself. I can only go by with what these partners provide. And so, when they say that this is important and this is the things they need to do, what I hear and what you hear is the same thing. And so that we're dealt the hand that we have, right? We don't own that property. We don't control that property. What we can do is control what's in front of us. And so what we'll do is continue to control that. And I can only deal with what the information that we have. And so we've developed, I think, a pretty positive relationship. But when you come to these types of projects, I'm sure there's lots of nuances and things that happen that could impact how those decisions are made, or the types of things they tell us and where they go. What I can tell you is that we are now in a position where they have submitted all of their documents for their site plan approval, that we've been holding their feet to the fire to make sure that those documents, as far as the elevations in the site plan, are consistent with the zoning. And so it's not been an easy process, but that's where we're at. And my conversations with them is that they're still working on their tenant situation, but they feel confident that they have what they need to be able to continue moving forward. And they haven't slowed down, and so they haven't missed this date as far as getting these documents into us. And we're going to be working closely on finding ways to make sure that we can start a construction schedule that makes sense to get them in the ground.
But when are we going to see, I have never been at a presentation for a center where we didn't see some sort of architectural drawings. We have yet to see any idea what it's going to look like. And the other thing, in yesterday's UK Daily Mail, Trader Joe's published a list of where they're opening 25, 26. We were not on that list. So I don't think Trader Joe's is going to be here, because it was a pretty coming from the company.
Yeah.
But, how do we have any faith in these people when it was hurry up, got to get it done, got to move it along, we need this? We've given them all sorts of concessions of our money to get this going, on them saying they had all these. Now all we know, the woman stood up there and said, well, we've got All About Bunt as their one signed up person. We're halfway through April. So when are we going to actually see what it's going to look like?
Yeah, so when we see what it looks like, that's where we're going to have the site plan. So the site plan approval process will include the elevations. And so as soon as Stacy can get through that process, we'll get those things up on the website, and we'll be able to let people look at what that's going to look like. And then before it comes for any kind of consideration through is the design review board that reviews that? Or development review board that will review that. So that's where we'll be able to to see how that plays out. And then people will be able to come in and comment on what that looks like.
But time frame?
Next 2 weeks?
It's going on the May 12th agenda. So we just got it in yesterday. We'll review it this week and put it online if we're moving it forward.
But for the residents to see it, because I think the
Correct.
thing you all want to avoid is a Hampton Inn debacle, where everyone said, everybody knew about it. I have yet to meet a single resident that said they knew that's what we were going to end up with. So I think this is an important quarter for us, you know, important site, that it's got to meet certain standards, but we've got to know who's going in there. I mean, they keep saying they've got letters of intent, but no one's signed up yet. This is almost 6 months later.
So first, I would say, since I was involved in this long before you were, is that we have been very accommodating to these developers to make sure that we were not in any way, shape, or form slowing down the process. Because we do want this project to come to fruition. We also have been waiting for them to submit the drawings, and they are very well aware of what our requirements are. So, I mean, Stacy can talk about this too, but they know what they are, and they will be, you know, they're in the process of getting us that information as well. But for someone also who dealt with developers for my whole career, there is a lot of hurry up and wait, and they have their agenda, and we are doing everything in our power to make sure that we are working with them and not holding anything back. So we will know when we know, but it is, you know, as far as we know, it's all moving forward.
So I would just say I agree with you, and I understand what you're saying, Diane. They did submit some site plans. They were not what the town was looking for as far as code and all those things. So they had to go back, so they had to go back and forth. What they did just submit should hopefully be able to be presented at the May meeting, where then we will be able to ask those questions directly to them. What letters of intent do you have signed? Who's going in? Steve doesn't know. So I'm actually myself looking very forward to that May meeting so that we can directly ask them the questions.
Yes, we'd like to know who's going in, and yes, tenancy is important, and we'd like to understand the types of tenants. But at the end of the day, we need the development. You can't have tenants if you don't have the development. And our responsibility is to do everything we can to get the right type of development that was approved under zoning, to get that moving forward. And so our job is to do whatever we can to facilitate that in a way that that can happen. You know, again, we don't control who owns the land. We don't control who's the developer. We do everything we can to make sure that whoever is in that driver's seat, we can help them be as successful as possible. And so that's exactly what we're trying to do. At the same time, I do understand the fact that if the community is providing some type of level of assistance, I think we have some kind of expectation of understanding what that quality is. And so quality is going to come down potentially into two factors. One is how does it look? And I get that. And so that's one of the reasons why it's maybe taken an extra month for it to get through the process of what we thought, is to make sure that it gets driven to the level of quality that meets the expectation that was set forward in that zoning case. And so that's where we're at. And the other one is going to be, yeah, we'd like to see higher quality tenants in that space. So whether it's a Trader Joe's or whatever it is, we'd like to see something that's going to be something that we can go there and enjoy as far as types of businesses we want in our community. And so we'll continue to keep working with them on that. But for us, it's making sure that we keep the ball moving forward to make sure that we don't miss out on the opportunity altogether. And so that's what we're going to continue to do. And if we see anything that gives us pause or causes us to concern, you know, obviously that'll be brought back up and forth with the council.
Well,
And
I think, oh, sorry, go
Oh,
ahead.
sorry. My other question's on rare earth. So is that going to be a showroom, or is it going to be a retail? Because if it's a showroom, we get no sales tax from it.
Yeah, they have to have retail.
So are they?
Yeah,
what is
they'll
their
have POS on
date?
site. So so everything they sell on that site will be sold out of that site.
Yeah, but if they set it up as a showroom, they're not selling, they're using it as a showroom.
No, they'll have the point of sale will be on site, so the point of sales will go through Carefree.
But
I think the owner, he said that when he was here, that it was going to be retail.
Yeah.
he said both at one point, and then he was very vague about, he said we have to be patient and give them time, and he's
Oh, I
trying
got
to
the
figure
impression it
out,
would be.
and-
Well, he's trying to take what was a drugstore and turn it into some type of, an art gallery of very large pieces of these things that he sells, and so, so the patience is going through that
No,
process.
I
yeah.
don't mind the patience to have it look right, but
Yeah.
he didn't give us a time frame. So. do we
Actually, I
have any-
think Stacy did. The town only gave him 6 months. And if he is not up and running, doors open, retail store 6 months, they lose their temporary license.
Yeah. So, any other questions?
Yeah, so I would just say, a good takeaway from this discussion is some level of frustration.
Mhm.
And of course, we want to make sure what's done is right, but it does, especially in the northeast corner, it does seem to take a long time to move things forward. And in terms of setting expectations, we're not necessarily responsible for setting some of the expectations that are stuck in our heads when we had the understanding things would move forward a lot quicker. It's not your fault, but I think as a whole, not only the folks sitting up here, but probably the community as a whole is a little certainly frustrated how long things take.
Well, to be fair, I think we're really not that far off what the original schedule was as far as where we wanted to be with site plan approval and moving forward on the construction side of things. And so I would say that we've done on our side, we've been diligent about getting that done. And I would say on their side, for the most part, they've been diligent about meeting those deadlines. And so, it always starts with some pie in the sky, kind of unrealistic expectation of getting those things completed. But I think we're very close to that.
Well, those pie in the sky unrealistic expectations came from the developer.
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly.
He did say, so I would say I understand the process of the site plan and everything else, but to the mayor's point, and he told me to my face, he said, oh, we need to get this signed, and when we get it signed, then I can tell you like 5 or 6 leases that we already have signed, and within 30 days, we'll have like another dozen. Now, I get it. I know we had the issue with Cave Creek trying to, go after the ones for their corner, and so they wanted to be a little bit more quiet. But I think that's the frustration is, okay, we're now almost, 6 months later coming back from November. So I think that's why we'll be anxious to see him in May. And it's not you, Steve, so it's.
Yeah, we're all frustrated. Don't get me wrong. As economic development director, I'd like to be able to tell you everything that's going on as far as tenancy goes on that site. All I can tell you is that my conversations is that they're not slowing down putting the project in the ground. And they've told me that they have what they need to look at their performer to make this deal work. And I can do nothing but have to trust what they're saying and the fact that they're putting their money where their mouth is and going through the engineering and the architecture and all of that, and they're putting real money towards getting this completed.
And if we're done with that, I would just say, if we look at the economic condition of the town, it's very vibrant, so a non-tangible thing, you can just feel it. And if you look at it on the tangible side, you look at hospitality, occupancy, Savannah and at the Hampton, and if you look at sales tax revenue, we're really going very strong. So we're in a good spot, so thank you for that.
Yeah. Thank you.
And I would just have one thing to close on. I won't bug you about the northeast corner.
No worries.
Anyway, your second to last point, I think, is the most important point you make. Focus on effort on filling vacant spaces. I think that's key. And I think that when I mentioned to Stacy about it, we could move up putting some teeth into these regulations to get these people that aren't doing us any good out of here. It just opens it up for you to bring in some real business.
So I totally agree with you on that.
So I think northeast corner I see as critical, but I also see filling vacant spaces and I think that's a big thing, and you and I talk about
Yep.
that, so
We'll continue to work on it.
keep pushing, yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Steve.
All right, Mayor, members of the council. So community development mainly deals with the private property. And on the flip side, Public Works deals with the public property. So we have our park here in the town center. We have 110 lane miles of streets We have over 300 culverts. CJ DiMaggio oversees our engineering and public facilities and streets department. CJ spoke to you at our tour. That feels like a day ago, but CJ is here to give you an overview of the Public Works Department.
Good afternoon, Mayor, members of council. I wanted to thank you for giving Public Works the attention you gave it this afternoon. It's an important facility, the Ed Everett facilities, the two facilities there, because so much of the important work that keeps this community functional happens there, and because of the people who work there. I never turn down an opportunity to go there because it brings back a lot of memories. My grandfather worked on the street crew in my hometown of Monterey, California for 27 years. And so just going there and seeing the equipment and the folks there and the smells there, the oils and the sand, and it makes me feel like a little kid again. So I was happy to share that with you today. Public Works has this split personality between me, the town engineer, and the folks who work at the Ed Everett shops. And it's because my focus as the town engineer is really on the design and construction of town assets, like our streets and our culverts, making sure that they're physically what they need to be to keep our community safe. Whereas the folks at our Ed Everett facilities on a day in, day out basis, they're focused on the maintenance and protection and preservation of those assets. So you need both. You need that symbiosis between those two outlooks. And that's why Travis and I talk frequently and compare notes. I want to know what he and his people are seeing, because those pain points point to deficiencies in our infrastructure. They point to things we need to think about correcting in the medium to long term so that we don't have expensive maintenance obligations on an ongoing basis. So what do I do personally as the town engineer? It's just a basket of a few things. I do regulatory compliance. And by regulatory compliance, I mean two specific programs. I mean dust control and stormwater. We talked a bit about MS4. That's an acronym that keeps coming up. MS4, Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System. And won't go into the details of that, but basically the dust, they interweave. The dust reporting we have to do to ADEQ and the MS4 program, they inevitably fall down from, in the case of dust, well, that's the Clean Air Act. That's the federal Clean Air Act. We are in the non-attainment area for PM10, for particulate matter smaller than 10 microns in diameter, and we have to take special measures. We have to have policies and procedures and regulations that ensure that we're taking action to reduce dust, polluting dust in the air that has harmful health impacts. And similarly, the Clean Water Act is the core of our MS4 program. That's what trickles down into the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, or NPDES, that ADEQ enforces upon us. So these are two unfunded mandates that look to us. They look to us to enforce regulations that make sure that we're protecting both our air and our water, our storm drain system. Secondly, I manage the planning, design, bidding, construction of our public assets. So when we have a construction project of a road maintenance, or I'll talk a bit about our sign program coming up shortly. When we're talking about tangible assets, we need to look for those to be designed and bid in a responsible manner and built in a responsible manner, and that's where I come in. We also protect town assets in the form of right-of-way permits, and call them in some communities encroachment permits, where people want to dig in our streets, install a new utility or something like that. That happens pretty frequently. We want to make sure that's done in a manner that doesn't damage our assets, doesn't damage our streets. And finally, I collaborate very closely with our building official, with our planning and zoning staff on the review of grading and drainage plans for residential commercial building permits, as well as pre-application planning and zoning efforts for entitlement projects. So that's what I do, and that's how it's kind of this duality that is kind of the office side of Public Works. So among those four key tasks, I'd like to point to you that there's a mix of public responsibility, that is our town assets that I'm focused on, as well as private development. I'm collaborating with our building official on plan reviews for private development by and large, and similarly with planning and zoning, to making sure some of the projects we've been talking about and Steve's been talking about are designed in a manner that are safe for the traveling public, for the visiting public, and harmonized with our infrastructure assets. I'll point to accomplishments we've had in the past year. I can't speak to them much because I'm fairly new still here. I started in November. But I will say this. We spoke in your council meeting on March the 4th about the update for the CIP for the next 5 years. So that hopefully gave you a good idea of where we're focused in terms of our big asset programs for that time period. MS4, it really is a big issue. It's a big bugbear for us because it can be very costly if we don't do it right. I got training as soon as I started here, about a month after I started here, and I participated in a very interdisciplinary fashion with Samantha in an interdisciplinary way to cover our bases. When we were notified, kind of out of the blue, ADEQ wanted to come and visit us and talk to us about some portion or all of our stormwater program. And we escorted the gentleman who came from ADEQ across our town to show them how we were approaching construction site mitigation and management, and we received a report of no deficiencies in that inspection. That's quite a turnabout from 2023. When we were audited, a much more elaborate inspection process, and we were found to be in deficiency and deficient on several measures. And those deficiencies required, as some of you might recall, some changes to ordinance, as well as the investment in consulting staff. I think we spent about $50,000 or $60,000 trying to remedy our program to get back in compliance. So I'm not personally taking credit for that. I know a lot of work happened, was taken by a lot of different people, including my predecessors. So regulatory compliance is a big and quiet part of our public works program that we can be proud of, I think. Where we have a seat at the table after quite a bit of time, Transportation Review Committee, to highlight the MAG. MAG is going to be the custodian of a lot of the dollars we'll be looking to for some of our key intersection improvements, such as Cave Creek Road and Pima Road. The base load of what I do, again, on that private side, private development, I, for instance, and my predecessor, who was only here 3 months of calendar year 2024, so that's between us 4.5 months, we processed 58 plan reviews for grading and drainage plans for a variety of projects, new residences, additions and such, as well as planning and zoning pre-application processes. So 58, if that's roughly a third of the year, you would expect the base load of that kind of review to be about 150 projects. So that's a lot of work. That's a lot of base load. We also, in the course of doing that, in the course of coming up to speed and having had more than a slight background in land development myself in my career, I heard pretty consistently in my first few months here that there wasn't a lot of transparency in how we were approaching, we engineering, we're approaching building reviews. And so we've taken some steps to make sure, with Madison's help, that we have some of that clarity. We have some checklists for applicants. We have standard notes available to them. So we're on par with our peer agencies, other cities and municipalities across the valley about what the development community can expect, which is, as John Gunn pointed out, is probably especially acute in our case because we have so many of the less experienced kind of owner-builder type developers. We also, in the encroachment permit sector, we processed 39 last year. So 39 claims on our infrastructure. That was not done by me. That was a very interdisciplinary effort, again, with the help of Samantha and Stacy. That's a lot of work. We have, just for comparison, currently, again, 3.5 months into the current calendar year, we have had processed 23. So if we're on par for that for the rest of the year, we can expect on par with about maybe 60 to 75 right-of-way permits. So that's a lot of work because that requires inspection, making sure that those excavations are done correctly and safely, and don't damage our streets. We're proud of the efforts made to our very high-profile Mill and Overlay project, which spanned our two key arterials, Tom Darlington and Cave Creek Road, east of Tom Darlington, as well as a few ancillary residential streets and commercial streets in the case of Ed Everett. So that was a heavy lift. That was a large contract. And we also, for most recent accomplishment for the current fiscal year, concluded on March 27th, the RFP for the Town Center Comprehensive Sign Plan. Not surprisingly, goals for the coming fiscal year will tear off of a lot of what I've just spoken about. We'll be enhancing and undertaking our MS4 training for our staff, our Ed Everett-based staff, building up the analytics that will tear off of our new digital radar speed limit sign network. It promises to help us interface very effectively with law enforcement officials to make sure that our streets are as safe as they can be for road users. You will be hearing more about the RFP for the Town Center Comprehensive Sign Plan in your meeting of May 6th. We will have a proposal to go forward with a selected vendor for that. We'll also be later this year advertising for our next, hopefully, Mill and Overlay, focused on a nice area of town that has original streets that are well over 40 years old and are in need of some rehabilitation. We'll be continuing to focus on collaborating with the Flood Control District of Maricopa County on some of our culvert issues. Culverts are really tricky because where we talk about culverts, what we're really talking about is our road network. A lot of people don't understand in Carefree, we as a town don't own our washes. Those are all privately owned. We only own them where they cross one of our roads and threaten to damage one of our roads. So that's where our concern really kicks in. So making sure we have those assets protected is something we're continually focused on. I hope by my final bullet point for my goals for 25-26, we have a trouble spot we've known about for some time in Sentinel Rock. That's on the humorously named Whitewash. They have a habit there in that neighborhood of naming their washes in colorful ways. The Whitewash is a real threat to property. And so we're hoping to participate in the SPAP program maintained by the Flood Control District, the Small Projects Assistance Program. We think that would be a very good candidate for. Moving ahead into the next slide, we'll dovetail into the operational side of Public Works, which is, you saw a bit about. It really is, to summarize what they do, I mean, they did a fine job of it when we visited there. It's problem solving. They get complaints. They'll hear from Gary or me or a citizen directly about a pain point in the community that needs attention, and they hop on it. Sometimes with very short notice and with very limited resources, and they get things done. I'm not going to go through all of their accomplishments. They had a lot of them in a very busy year, but I will highlight a couple of them. Not too long ago, just a couple, about 3 weeks ago, there was a concern, an ongoing maintenance issue that we know about at Rising Sun and Travoy Trail that they hopped on with a plumb and solved. There's a lot of those hiding in plain sight that need attention, constant attention, or they can become not just merely nuisances, they can become threats to life and property. And they're on that all the time. They also have to be good role models in our community. I mean, the facilities we saw today are in some ways the most important facilities in the town for MS4 compliance because they are at the bottom of the drainage network. Anything that enters the water there is at our outlet, so it can be detected in our sampling program, which is not a good thing. We don't want hydrocarbons and such contaminants entering and going downstream to other users in Cave Creek and beyond. We need to be a role model at those facilities, and I think you saw a good example of how they do take a good leadership, living by example kind of exercise there. They also recently just completed the installation of our new solar-powered digital radar speed sign network that is almost fully operational. It consists of 11 signs, 9 fully operational, 2 still undergoing troubleshooting, and those are interesting analytics. I just saw one result come out that on Cave Creek Road, westbound, out not far from Desert Mountain. Somebody went 68 miles an hour. And that was at 11 p.m. or in the 11 p.m. hour on one recent night. The speed limit is 40. So that's a dangerous condition. We need to know about that. We need to know where those pain points are so we can coordinate with law enforcement to make sure that we're keeping our streets as safe as they possibly can be. One bullet item I can't resist highlighting, which is provided rapid response to material spills in streets. It was not long ago, about a little over a month ago, on a Friday afternoon. It was 3:30 p.m. So there had already been, the office was already emptying out. And we got a concerned resident coming into the town hall to notify us that they had noticed spilled concrete on one of our streets. That's bad news, because if it dries, it can, well, even if it doesn't dry, if it dries, it becomes a very hard to remove obstacle within our roads. And if it doesn't dry, if it stays wet, it's a very pronounced traffic hazard. People can skid out on that very easily, and you can have a real problem really fast. So I dashed out to try to see what the issue was, if there even was an issue, and there was. It required immediate attention. I placed a call, and Dustin came to the rescue, and one of the pieces of equipment we saw today on Ed Everett, and he was, I think it's safe to say, ticked off. He didn't like to see our streets abused like that, and but he solved the problem. And that's what I think of as public works. Having grown up in a public works environment, my own father was a public works director for a small city in Central California. Public works is about problem solving. I think you could even rename that department problem solving department, and you wouldn't be far off the mark. So no, I'm proud to represent that as our accomplishments and goals for our split personality engineering and streets-focused public works department. I'd be happy to take any questions you might have.
Well, if I knew you were 3 generations of public works, you could have just put that on your resume and we would have hired you. Okay. Well done. Questions from council?
No, I'm good.
So I have a question. When you were doing the roads and I was objecting to the horrendous cost, will you be breaking down the roads you're thinking of addressing by how many miles the road is, what materials you're considering for the new roads, and are you considering the fact that the materials are changing and also the way roads are going to be done in the future as robotics come up will affect the cost? So will you be doing section by section for us so we know what kind of materials you're considering to put down? Some of these roads have held up for 40 years. And how you're going to bid it.
Those are excellent questions. We jumped at the chance on March 7th when we had a little storm. I mean, we got the better part of 9/10 of an inch. When that rain happened, it gave us a rare opportunity to actually, it takes like an x-ray of the street. You can actually see where the cracks are. And I went out to Carefree Rolling Hills and Carefree Shadows just to see what some of the, because that had been ranked in the robotics program as being our highest priority neighborhoods. And it's kind of dire on some of those streets. In fact, I think Venus Drive, it's downright degraded. It's lost a lot of its competence. There's a lot of uncertainty right now in the timing of our rehabilitation. I mean, in the economy, which presents kind of an opportunity in some ways. I think there's a lot of evidence based on what I've heard from my colleagues on MAG, the MAG Transportation Review Committee. The 2021 and 2022 infrastructure infusion of funding did a lot to bid up the cost of construction, unfortunately for agencies such as our own. That may be resolving a little bit, especially as oil prices have retreated a fair amount, which is good for timing in terms of having an asphalt project, asphalt overlays. Because as those material costs go down, we may be able to realize some savings. And I think there's also one of the efficiencies we stand to realize this year is that we're well positioned to go to market. when we had the RFP for the sign project, for instance, with Kristen coming on, we had a lot of tap into some new expertise about how to approach bidders prior to the opening of the RFP. I think we'll be even more aggressive this time around by going to letting the market know that we have needs and that we have dollars to spend, and we want those dollars to go as far as they possibly can. But to your point about how to segment that out, I think yes. I think we will want to structure the bid in such a manner as to make sure it fits our budget, it fits our resources, what the work we can accomplish. So maybe we tier it out in forms of ad alternates. So we target the streets most in need and the neighborhoods most in need. And if we can get as much as we can get done that we want to get done, great. If we have to pare back, certainly going to market aggressively and getting a good roster of prospective bidders, and then maybe negotiating with the right bidder to make sure we're getting just the work we can afford. I think there's a multifaceted approach there that we can certainly execute on.
But we will be, when you make a decision on who you think the best bid is, you will be coming to us, laying out all of the information and allowing us to ask questions and just see what the whole project looks like.
You bet.
Right.
And you'll share with us the number of lane miles and the materials and the whole 9 yards.
You bet. And that's one of the goals we have in the town engineer section of Public Works. I really desperately want to get the GIS up and running. We've never had a GIS. Well, we have. It's been many, many years since we've had a GIS, and you heard some needs for it with regard to the cemetery management. That's been well identified. It's not a hugely heavy lift. It's not very expensive, but it's something that has been a gap in our organization, because those kinds of simple inquiries we can run on tracking what work has been done, what streets are most in need, harmonizing with the data that we already have. That will help us make informed decision-making to a great extent.
Okay, other questions or comments? Okay, CJ, thank you very much. Good job.
Thank you all.
For those grants.
Oh, you bet.
Okay.
All right, Mayor. Last but not least, as far as staff departments, is our consolidated court. Some of you may know that about 12 years ago, we agreed to an intergovernmental agreement with the town of Cave Creek. It's something I proposed to Cave Creek approximately 20 years ago, and they had some internal issues with the operation of their court, and they came to us saying the time is ripe to consider the consolidation. I prepared an IGA. That IGA, we capture all the fines, and we share in the costs of salary and benefits and contractual costs of the operation of the court. So it is a unique financial model that the state of Arizona has recognized and has used to look at other courts in small towns to partner together and save some money and improve the efficiency of the court. That being said, Judge Paris Condola is here. Judge oversees the operation of the court. She had a few challenges over this past year in that her court administrator and her deputy clerk left the organization and went to other organizations. So it's always problematic finding talented staff, but she does have two individuals that do provide a wealth of knowledge and have been a good complement to the court. So that being said, I'll pass it off to the judge.
Hello, good afternoon, Mayor and members of the Town Council. Thank you for having me this afternoon. I wholeheartedly agree with the town manager's statement. We have two individuals who work at the court full-time that fully complement our mission of the court, and that is treating everyone with dignity and respect, first and foremost. And of course, doing our work in the most efficient way possible. The two members that I have, one of them is here with me today. That is my court administrator, Andrea Mercer, and she took the position in October of this past year. Ms. Mercer was with us previously as our town clerk, So it was nice to welcome her back after she left and to come back in the role of court administrator. We also have Ms. Donnette Plant, and she is operating as our deputy court clerk. They both do an immense job, and they do so many different jobs in terms of what their major duties are versus what they are actually doing. The court administrator, of course, to bottom line it, runs the court. She's in charge of all of the day-to-day operations in terms of the case management system, disposition reporting, compiling statistics, because as a court, just like every other public entity, we are under requirements to report exactly what we are doing and providing numbers and statistics to a variety of different agencies and making sure that every case and each and every case that is processed through our system is reported accurately, so that accurate information, for example, is communicated to the Arizona Department of Transportation after a civil traffic or a criminal traffic violation. So she is in charge of basically everything, scheduling and communications and payments, and her title, even though it says court administrator, is not limited to just being an administrator. In most of the big courts, that's exactly what a court administrator does. They simply administrate. They do not get involved in the day-to-day operations. Being a small court, Ms. Mercer absolutely is involved in the day-to-day operations of what's happening and handling customers at the window, answering the phone, disposing of cases as needed. And we have Ms. Plant, of course, and she's not here because she was at the court manning everything else while we were here. She's processing tickets. She's maintaining the files and receipting all of the payments that are received, whether it's from defensive driving school or payments that people are making according to their payment contracts. It's all certainly can be boiled down to customer service, and that is why I appreciate them both so much in terms of the way in which they interact with the public, because I think that is absolutely the priority we must have as a court in terms of how we deal with the customers and users of the court that we have. My role, as you can probably guess, as the judge of the Carefree Court, I'm the one who handles all of the cases. So I handle all of the criminal cases, the civil cases, the juvenile matters. I handle any requests for emergency petitions for whether it's an order of protection or injunction against harassment. And then court staff is responsible for processing all of the work that comes from my handling of those cases. But in addition to that, we have many other jobs that we have to do besides just handling those cases and, of course, all of the reporting that is done by our court. We also have to 100% stay on top of all of the changes that we see that are implemented, either through administrative order from the Supreme Court and use of their rulemaking authority, and from the legislature. So we're always having to look ahead, as I am now, in terms of anticipating what the legislature is going to be presenting for us to implement once they're done meeting and their session is closed. Because those are all of things that we have to then account for, whether it's minor changes in the law or major changes in the law. And I mean by anticipating is that it's very important for us, because we do operate on a cost-saving basis, is we don't want to, for example, update a form that it looks like there's already going to be additional changes being made, and then we incur more printing costs for no reason or an unnecessary reason. So we have, as stated in our accomplishments, we've been continuing to basically ensure best practices, that we are ensuring the best practices and compliance with the law, and that is shown through the administrative orders that our court in fact, issues as on an internal basis, the policies that we set, the meetings that we have with all the necessary stakeholders. For example, the security meetings that we have on a regular basis with, for example, the town marshal of Cave Creek. We have it, of course, with our new bailiff who we're onboarding, Mr. Contreras, who we're very happy to have over at the court with us. Also with the Cave Creek Fire Department and with members of the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office to ensure we're accounting for security concerns. We don't have a dedicated court building, so we're in a unique position that we always have to look at, well, if there's problems that are posed, how are we going to deal with it? And how are we going to address it to keep the public safe, to keep staff safe, and everything goes smoothly. So we have those and the accomplishments that we have for this past year. We also are, like I said, always looking forward. One of the main priorities of the court is continuing education. That is vital in terms of us meeting and talking with other courts, and again, employing those best practices, ensuring that we know what the best way to approach a problem is, and just simply gaining more education. Our deputy court clerk is going to be attending a fantastic program that the Arizona Supreme Court puts forward. It's called a civil traffic hearing officer training, and it basically educates staff, because it's mainly staff members. There's also judges that attend this training as well. I've attended it and found it to be extremely valuable. It basically goes through the beginning of a ticket and then the processing of that ticket and all of the things that happen in between. And it gets into the nitty-gritty of the Arizona revised statutes and talking about where statutes it matters whether a person is a resident or a non-resident. And it really delves deep, but also gives a great overview. So I know that Ms. Plant, our deputy court clerk, who has been fantastic and learning so quickly, is going to thoroughly enjoy that program and really be able to take a lot from it. Another example of our need and wanting for continuing education. Ms. Mercer had herself and Ms. Plant attend a virtual COJET, which is basically a continuing legal education program that's put out. And as part of that program, they were discussing, it was put on by the Arizona Disposition Reporting System, which is an arm of the Arizona Department of Public Safety. The importance of that was they were talking about the appropriate dispositions because, again, reporting by the court is absolutely necessary, and we're having to report to a bunch of different agencies regarding what happens after a case is concluded, one of those being the Arizona Department of Public Safety. But through attending this, she learned of an opportunity where basically the court can participate in a voluntary audit of our process for fingerprint compliance. I'll back up a little bit. Fingerprint compliance really hit the courts, and it was January 1st of 2023. When I say really hit the courts, basically the legislature changed the number of offenses exponentially that needed what are called 10-print fingerprints. Okay, so someone has to actually go down to the sheriff's department and be 10-printed. This is on criminal charges. It used to be a very minor set, if you will, of types of offenses, but was expanded greatly with that change. Again, it's something that then it becomes on the court's duty to look to make sure that we are in compliance with making sure that is done before a case is concluded. So this COJET was related to that particular issue. It provided, an opportunity that we weren't even aware that existed. And Ms. Mercer was like, we have an opportunity to participate in a voluntary audit. Absolutely. It's at no cost to the court, and it only benefits us in making sure that what we're doing is exactly what we need to be doing. And just as a side note, I brought up the fingerprint compliance as just an added duty for us, especially because the persons who are charged with criminal offenses are ordered, and they have to report down to basically South Phoenix to have their 10 prints done. Oftentimes, that does not occur. And of course, there's legal mechanisms. I issue an order to show cause as to why they shouldn't be punished for not having their fingerprints, but oftentimes we've turned to our court bailiff to just go ahead and 10 print them in court. That complicates work and creates extra unnecessary work for court staff. So we're looking at ways in which we can make sure we are getting compliance, at the same time not putting extra duties on the staff who have a lot more issues to address. So I know I've spoken fast, but I figured I'm the last and the end of the day, and you're probably tired. But I'm certainly happy to answer any questions.
But I think Colleen has to leave, unfortunately.
Okay.
But I do have
Thank you,
questions.
council member.
So I think, you didn't touch on it, but we talked about it last time you were here.
Yes.
Is the caseload.
Yes.
And how that's gone up dramatically. And from memory, on the order of 50% or more. And so my guess is the expectation is it will at least stay at the current level. for
Correct,
sure.
correct. We are definitely anticipating, based upon our numbers, because the numbers that were provided to the council and mayor were, I believe, through the end of February. We still have several months to go, and just based on what we see coming in on a regular basis, we know those numbers are going up. We were talking about just, was it yesterday or today, we were talking about having to potentially add an additional court day for the prosecutor to appear, because the criminal calendar especially is getting quite congested. And so to perhaps have an opportunity for him to appear on a different date where we can also handle criminal matters.
So is that a reflection of criminal activities going up, or what does that tell us?
You know, it's hard. I can tell you that we seem to have seen an increase, certainly, in people being arrested on outstanding warrants. So we have certainly seen that. We've also seen some additional filings. And when I say criminal activity, these include also criminal speed, criminal driving on a suspended license, things that, however, do require the presence of the prosecutor in order to dispose of the case. I'm not trying to imply that suddenly it's become a scary place or anything
exactly.
like that. But we have definitely seen an uptick in the amount of those types of cases, and so it's especially impacting our calendar.
Well, I would say to the contrary. What
Yes.
it tells me is that, so we have more law enforcement presence in both towns.
Absolutely.
And they pull someone over and they have an outstanding warrant, well, okay, we have, something's going to happen.
Exactly.
If there's people speeding at a criminal speed, okay, we have more presence on the roadways that are catching them. So actually, your answers makes me feel better, because I
Good.
thought, we have burglaries, we have these crimes happening. Well, it's not what's driving the number.
Right,
So good.
exactly.
Thank you for that.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay, questions from council? Okay, Judge, thank you very much. Thanks for
Thank
sticking
you
it
all.
out.
I appreciate it. Okay.
So Mayor, just a couple more slides and then we'll be done. But you just heard from the majority of our town staff, the 16 folks that every day are here to serve the community. We are one team. We are Team Carefree. We are here to represent the community. And I think you heard the passion in a lot of the folks that spoke today, and they're here and dedicated to this community. But we do have some contractual services, and most notably under risk management, we contract for legal services. Dennis Fitzgibbons is our general municipal law attorney. On occasion, we have a need during the course of the year for special legal counsel to focus on unique issues. So municipal law attorney focuses on the general stuff, and then there's the special legal issues that we always budget for, but sometimes we use it, sometimes we don't. But you always have to budget for it to anticipate those respective costs. We also have the prosecutor, falls under legal services, not part of the court. Obviously, the prosecutor can't be paid out of the court budget, so it falls within legal services. Under insurance, we contract with Southwest Risk. They represent 71 communities within the state. We pool our resources together to ensure that we get the best price for our unique insurance coverage for municipalities. So municipalities have a unique portfolio of insurance, and this is the best way to reduce the costs. We will see about a 10% increase in our contract for this next year through Southwest Risk, but if you went out to the private sector, it would be a lot more than that if you looked at your home insurance and your car insurance. So it's a pretty good deal. Under public safety, we all know that we contract with Rural Metro for fire emergency services. Within the current contract, there's a 2.5% inflator. We're in year 3 of a 5-year contract. As I stated earlier, we will look to having the conversation with the new ownership of Rural Metro this year to understand the terms of a potential new contract. Obviously, we can see an increase in that new contract, and where we are with an annual inflator remains to be seen, but those are terms that need to be ironed out. There are some additional costs associated with our fire department. We own all the bricks and mortar, so there's investments within the fire station that we'll be making, and investments in equipment, most notably some mobile radios that will be replaced to a tune of approximately $100,000. We will go out, see what contracts are out there under the state contract to get the lowest possible price, but we're also going to seek some grants to offset that respective investment, but it's something that we need to invest in. And just like your cell equipment, every 5, 6, 7 years, you get a new cell phone. Same thing with the radios with our fire department. As far as law enforcement, one interesting note real quick with MCSO is the contract's going down this year by about $60,000. And the reason why is not because the cost of labor is going down, it's because they renegotiated their pension liability. They spread it over a 25 to 30-year period of time. They bonded it, and they paid it off through those bonds. So there'll be principal and interest payments for a period of about 60 years. That reduced the liability to us by $60,000. There will be increases to the MCSO contract in future years. The mayor and I went down last week and met with the sheriff, and one of the conversation points is, where do you think labor costs will be? And he said, up. How much? Don't know. But we're competing with the municipalities, we're competing with the state, and we're all in a bidding war for law enforcement support. So there will be increases in the MCSO contract in future years. So this is kind of a anomaly. It's not the rule, it's the exception to the rule with that $60,000 reduction. Any questions as far as contract services? And we'll go into more of the detail with our future discussion next week. CJ touched upon capital projects. We're looking at street maintenance, mill and overlay, and Velvet Shadows and Rolling Hills. We do have quantities, and that's how we bid out projects. We do have specifications. That's how we bid out projects. And I'll be glad to share one of the things that we do is we give you the bid documents, and you will get the bid documents when we go through the bid process. So you can see how extensive it is and what we bid on. So you can be reasonably assured that the information that is shared with you is based on best industry practices. So the strategic plan spoke about mill and overlay of this area within the community. The capital improvement project plan that was updated was in alignment with that. And this is the next step in budgeting funds for that. And we'll go through that in more detail, and we'll share with you pictures of the respective streets and how the level of distress is needing significant attention. And some of these pictures are representative of those respective streets. Drainage repairs, we seem to get the most significant damage during our monsoon period when we get the rapid or flash flooding events, and we have to protect our streets. It does damage to culverts and walls along our streets, so we have budgeted repairs for those respective drainage projects. Town Center, we're looking at budgeting for parking, our signage program that Steve and others have spoke about, and then continuing investment in our gardens, looking at landscape investments and irrigation repairs. So that just is a few of the touch points within our capital projects. As far as next steps, so next week, 2 o'clock, meeting will not be as long as this one, but I'll give a overall presentation of forecasted revenues and give the numbers behind the respective expenses. Then on the following week, April 29th, we'll review the program-based budget. You will get a copy of the draft program-based budget. 1 week prior to that meeting, we will also release it to the residents. That blends the narratives that were shared tonight with the numbers that will be shared next week and give you the overall picture of our respective budget. And then we go into the final phase of the budget process, which is the approval process, where we adopt the bottom line, the tentative budget on May 6th, and then we have the budget hearing on June 3rd. So that being said, that's our overall presentation for today. Once again, Mayor, if you have received any questions, now is the time to hear from the residents.
So I remembered there was a question. Hopefully you remembered your question. And you're welcome, John Nivsky, to come on up and.
I have a whole bunch, but in deference to the time, we're almost pushing 6 o'clock, I'll just ask a couple. And the first question had to do with the financial software that you're implementing. Is that a new software, or is it just an upgrade to the existing software?
It's a little bit of both. The software that we currently have, Fund Balance, was executed in 2002 and hasn't had any upgrades since 2014. This new system replaced it, and we
Okay.
didn't buy the new system when it was replaced.
Okay.
So
As-
yes.
As so often happens, when you exchange or upgrade one software system for another, there are potential bugs. So are you going to run a parallel process where you maintain the old system while you're testing out the new system?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Point taken, and we have that in our plan. Thank you.
Great. And then my other question among a bunch is when the judge, I guess, she's still here? Yeah, when the judge spoke to the increase in criminal cases, criminal activities, et cetera, do you have a sense of how that's divided between Cave Creek and Carefree?
I don't have as far as the recent increase that I've seen. As far as the numbers that we've seen overall for the months of January and February, it was fairly evenly divided between the jurisdictions.
Okay,
But that's not distinguishing between criminal and civil.
yeah. Okay. I was just curious because I've been observing that new Mustang that the sheriff's office has, they're constantly pulling people over. I mean, every time I go up and down Cave Creek Road, they've got somebody pulling over. So I figured that might have to do with at least partially the increase. This isn't really a question, but I want to go back real quickly to the northeast corner. You know, from an economic development perspective, yes, there's the process. And as I understand it, they're kind of adhering basically to the timeline of the process. What concerns me, though, is the quality of what we don't know, which is what's going there. I'm reminded of, you've been here for a long time. I'm reminded of the building on the corner of Stetson and Scottsdale Road. At the time it was built, which is now about 20 years ago, it was a futuristic-looking building. Everybody was talking about how great the architecture was, et cetera. That building stood empty for a long time. a long time. Because even though, and I was a little bit involved, even though they met the process for getting permits, et cetera, and the property went up, it sat empty. It wasn't producing revenue, it wasn't doing anything for the longest time. My concern is that as we move forward here, with the economy being not on such solid footing, as we're all reading, et cetera, that there may come a time when, yes, we've gone through the process, they might even turn dirt, but all of a sudden, we're not seeing anything beyond that. So I understand the frustration on the council, it's also my frustration, because at the end of the day, if we don't see something developing fairly soon, and if we as a city and you as a council don't get some better information as to how it's going there, it may end up being a dud. It may not, but it also may. And the sooner we get a better sense of which way we're going to be looking at that development, I think the better off we're all going to be. Anyway, thank you.
Okay, thanks, John. Okay, any other questions from the council? Okay, so thank you all, council, but also thank you to the staff. Great presentations today. Thanks for sticking around for 3 hours. And I think the one common message is you all do a great job, everyone. And you all work together very well, and you serve the community well. And we're proud to have all of you. So thank you.
Go
So-
Team Carefree.
Yeah. So with that, we'll adjourn the meeting.